Okay, we are now recording. This is the March 3rd episode of Prehistory: A Traveler's Guide. I am your host, Greg, and with me tonight I have Sam, Mike Fredericks,
Hello.
Prehistoric Times, got Monster Hunter Scott, and we're also bringing on, for our guest tonight, we have bring on a very good friend of mine from the Cleveland Museum. If you guys may have kept notice last year, I interviewed her hubby, Lee, and today we're just interviewing the wife, Miss Ashley Hall. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on with you guys, spending our Saturday night together.
I wouldn't have had it any other way. All right, so anyhow, I'll start with the first question here. All right, the first one of mine is, what was the first spark that ignited your interest in paleontology, more specifically paleontology education? Was it a particular movie, documentary, or something else that got you hooked and onto the career path of SciComm?
Okay, so when I was... Let me put it this way. I don't remember a time where I was not interested or at museums. From the time I was about 4 years old, my parents somehow, I don't know, they got me interested in dinosaurs. So I started getting interested in dinosaurs. I don't remember what it was, if it was like a book or a TV show or if it was Land Before Time or what it was. But I grew up in the late 80s, so I was born in 84. And I just remember loving dinosaurs to the point where I would go to relatives' house, and it was Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, and I would just start rambling off things about dinosaurs, like Stegosaurus lived in the Jurassic, and, you know, all these facts about dinosaurs when I was 4 years old, and my mom was like, that's nice, honey. You know, Grandpa's so nice for tolerating you. But and then they started taking me, you know, really encouraging my love of dinosaurs by taking me to the Field Museum in Chicago, which is my all-time favorite museum ever in the world, and it will hold a special place in my heart because when I was, you know, a little kid going into the Stanley Field Hall, and you walk in and it's huge and grand and bigger than anything, and there's elephants which look dwarfed, and it's so crazy. And then, of course, when I was growing up, Sue the T-Rex was there in the main Stanley Field Hall, and just seeing Sue and seeing Evolving Planet, the exhibition there, just sparked my passion for everything prehistoric, and I really wanted to pursue paleontology as a career. So that's kind of how I first got my start, you know, with museums.
Yep, that story sounds...
I can relate to that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think I had the exact same child experience, you know, just rambling off dinosaur names. My parents were like, that's nice, you know. And then, you know, kind of having that similar experience. And then sometimes my parents or sometimes my parents' friends would literally just quiz me and just, like, name every single dinosaur name you can think of. And I was like 8 or 9 during this time, and I think I can name off, you know, I named off like 100 different dinosaurs, no exaggeration. I'm guessing you follow the Sue Twitter on Twitter, right?
Yep. Absolutely. One of the best Twitters that has ever been created, and it's it's just so hilarious. That's a really good example of good science communication from a non-human.
Probably the best there is and ever will be.
Yep.
I kind of want to throw my own
question to
there.
see what she does with like when Titanosaur arrives, Patagotitan. That's gonna be funny. Did you guys see what happened with when Patagotitan got to the AMNH and like the whale was talking to her? That was really funny.
What was this?
So when the AMNH got Patagotitan, the whale that lives in the AMNH and the sauropod were talking over text, and it was hilarious. I should check it out.
I don't think I've seen that. You'll have to show me one time.
Yeah.
But I had a question I wanted to kind of, you know, ask and, you know, kind of continuing off what sparked your interest, I kind of wanted to know what your kind of, academic journey was in it, to where you are now working at the Cleveland Museum, like your schooling, what you kind of worked on, research, kind of basic stuff like that. I kind of wanted to know what was your upbringing in terms of being where you are now.
So I will just preface, I have the most, my academic background is so scattered, so please bear with me. So I actually wanted to pursue a degree in paleontology specifically, to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Montana State University and I'm going to go take paleontology there and I'm going to major in it. But I am not a test taker. Like, I did not do well on tests. I got A's and B's in school, but when I came to the SAT, I got good enough to get into a state school. And I couldn't do out of state because it was too expensive. My family is middle class. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wanted to stay close to home too. And so I got into IU Bloomington, which is a beautiful, beautiful campus, beautiful school, trees everywhere, awesome majors to choose from. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to IU Bloomington. It's like 3.5 hours away. I can drive home to South Bend, Indiana on the weekends and visit my family. So I actually went to IU Bloomington. And because I didn't have a degree in paleontology, I majored in anthropology because I learned that in the anthropology department, they actually had a zoo archaeology lab. And they did have geology courses. So I went and, met with the advisor and said, okay, I want to kind of, I'm really interested in paleontology, but I will do anthropology because it seems like I can sort of make my own major through this. And so I took a lot of biology. I took a lot of geology. David Polly, president of SVP, is there now. And so now they do have a better program. But I ended up really loving faunal osteology, the study of animal bones. And so what I did is, through my anthropology major, I wanted to study animal bones because I thought, okay, if I'm going to try to do paleontology through anthropology, I'm going to study animal bones because everything has bones if you're a vertebrate. And I'm going to take a lot of geology and not a lot of math because I am terrible at math, like the worst at math. And so
we can all relate.
Oh my God, like so bad. Oh, I have to tell you guys, so I was the worst at math, to the point where I took anthropology also because it required one math class, and it was college algebra. Okay, so get this. So I take college algebra. I put it off until my very last semester of college as a senior, and I was like, it's totally fine, like, it's whatever, it's easy, probably, it's an easy math class. It super wasn't. It was not an easy math class. And to the point where I would go to tutoring like twice a week and I would cry. Like, I straight cried at tutoring because I couldn't understand it. And I was like, I'm going to fail. I'm not going to do this. It's going to be, oh my God, I'm going to be here for like 5-6 years in college, which is not unheard of, by the way. But I ended up getting through that math class, and it nearly killed me. I passed, by the way, I passed with a C- because I'm pretty sure he felt bad for me. Like, I don't think it was like I was a D. Like, let's just face it, I was pretty much a D. So, so anyway, don't do that if you're listening. If you're still in school, please don't do that. Take your math first and then gradually graduate with easy classes.
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm actually taking college algebra at the moment, and I'm pretty okay with algebra, but I can relate to you on that struggle for sure.
Oh my God.
It's absolutely time consuming. So I can relate to you if you want to struggle bus.
Oh my God. And my husband Lee is also the same way. Like, he took a long time with math, and not everyone's good at it. We all are good at different things. So back to anthropology. So I took a lot of courses that had to do with prehistory things, biology, geology, and in anthropology, I also got a really healthy respect for people and cultures, and took a lot of really cool courses about why people do the weird stuff that they do, and I fell in love with different cultures, and it really gave me a good, healthy respect for everything that people do. And so,
Right.
and especially in today's age, where it's so easy to say, I hate people and people are the worst, which we are. There's also a lot of good people, and you can sort of understand where people are coming from when you've taken anthropology classes, So
That's amazing. Yeah.
So along with that, I also took animal behavior, because in college I flip-flopped,
really?
and I went like, okay, I'm going to do paleontology stuff through anthropology, which I love, but I'm also going to maybe be a zookeeper. And so in college, I think we all do. We're like, all right, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be this. And you keep switching around because you don't know, because you're young, and you're like, I don't know what I'm good at. And so I love animals like we all do. I love extant organisms. I'm obsessed with birds. I'm a birder, and I love zoos, and I've worked in zoos, and so I love, I have pets, I have a snake, and I have a cat. That doesn't really count as like an exotic, but
yeah.
So I took
that for sure.
Yeah, so I took animal behavior, and then I decided that I was going to be a zookeeper, and so I went out to the Los Angeles Zoo during my time in college, my semester sort of to do something and go somewhere as part of my minor. And so I went to the LA Zoo because I got an internship working with birds kind of all over the zoo and learning husbandry and learning behavior. And so my project was to go out and do credit hours at the zoo.
Okay.
I had a blast. I had so much fun. But here's the thing. Being a zookeeper in LA is really hard. Like,
I can imagine.
It's 100 degrees like most of the year, and so not only are you like shoveling poop from animals, but you're also like sweating so bad, and you're exhausted at the end of the day. And when you live in a cool city like LA, what do you want to do at night? Go out, right? You want to go out and hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
And so I was like exhausted at the end of the day, and I'm like, I'm gonna die in this job if I take this. If I get a job as a zookeeper, I'm not gonna be able to go out at night or have fun. So I'm just gonna want to like curl up in a ball and drink ice water the entire rest of the night. So, but I will tell you, like, being a zookeeper was the most fun thing because I got to work with incredible birds. I got to work with hornbills and hawks and eagles and really exotic stuff like turacos and parrots. But then also I got the honor and privilege of working with the California condors. And really? Like, holy crap, you guys. Yeah, like so freaking cool. So I actually got to be up there when the babies were being reared. So you've probably seen where you have to hand feed the babies with like the condor puppet.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
Because they can't see people because, you want them to be in the wild and be afraid of people. And so you have to feed them with a little puppet. And one of my most memorable moments at the zoo was actually, so they were like, yeah, you get to feed the baby today. And I was like, awesome, that sounds so great. And so I'm feeding the baby like bits of meat with the puppet. And the baby starts pecking the puppet. It's like getting really aggressive. And they're like, you have to peck the baby back. Peck the baby. And I'm like, this is like, there's like 300 in the world. Like, I was like, I'm not going to hurt the baby.
That's kind of mean.
So then I ended up having to peck the baby back because the moms, right, if you have like a young, I don't know, if you have like a young kid or whatever, you have to like discipline them back, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I ended up like that was one of the coolest things I did at the zoo. And I
dreamed much.
It was super amazing, yeah, and I met so many cool people and, really got to experience the city. But then after my internship, I went back to LA. The story is long. I hope you guys are okay.
Yeah. I'm following it.
So I went back to LA, or went back to Bloomington after LA, spending 3 months there, and I went, okay, back to the drawing board. What am I going to do? I don't really want to be a zookeeper.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was finishing school, I applied and got a job back in LA at the LA Zoo as a zoo camp counselor, or zoo camp instructor, sorry. So I really wanted to live in yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I said I feel like I know where this is going, because I volunteered kind of in that same role at the Denver Museum. I just want to hear what your experience is, just to see if it's just like mine, but continue.
So I ended up getting a job there, and I was so excited because I really wanted to live in LA. And while I was a zoo camp instructor, which was also basically being a zookeeper.
Like, humans, children.
Like, exactly, you're a child keeper. Except you don't have to pick up the poop, which is nice.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank goodness. But you have to do all sorts of crazy things, like be outside and sweat all the time. But anyway, it was my foot in the door to do other stuff in LA. Like when I was a zoo camp instructor, one of our field trips was to actually plan a trip to the Natural History Museum in LA. So I went,
oh yeah.
What? There's a Natural History Museum in LA? I didn't know that. So the really cool thing about that was that I took my kids to the Natural History Museum and went, oh my God, this is it. This is what I wanted to do. Like, I don't want to work at the zoo anymore. I mean, it's great and I love it, but I'm still hot and sweaty and I'm still wrangling kids. I want to work at the museum. I get to be inside around dinosaur bones, around the stuff that I've always loved, and that initial passion and spark came back. And so I actually wanted to volunteer there in paleontology. So the crazy thing, here's the connection. My boss at the zoo was Greg, Dr. Chiappe's wife. So Dr. Louise Chiappe at the LA Natural History Museum's wife is one of the managers at the zoo. And so she's like, oh, you could maybe volunteer with my husband at the Natural History Museum. His name is Dr. Louise Chiappe. And I went, wait, you're who? Seriously? I know him. I know him because I'm obsessed with bird evolution and birds, and like I know him. And so she put me in touch with Dr. Chiappe, and so he was totally cool with me volunteering there with him. Here's where it got interesting. So after I worked with the zoo camp, I actually applied as a gallery interpreter at the Natural History Museum, which is an education position, and I got it. And it was full-time, and it was in LA, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to get to make money to live, and then also just have maybe 1 or 2 jobs to support myself, and be back doing the things that I love the most, which is paleontology and being around all sorts of cool stuff in museums. So here's the kicker. So when I got to the museum, I was not able to volunteer. Like, this is the sound of my heart breaking. Like,
yeah.
It was so devastating, and I was like, what do you mean I can't volunteer? I already set this up. He's already cool with it. I don't understand. So basically it was a conflict of, like, interest with the job and the volunteering. Anyway, I can't explain it, but it was an HR issue.
I understand completely.
Yeah. So, like, my mind was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? My life is over. Like, I had that split moment where I was like, no! But as it turns out, that was the good thing. So here's why. So when I wasn't able to volunteer, I had to look elsewhere for actually getting my foot in the door to work with dinosaurs and to work with fossils and to be in collections. So while I was having a blast at the Natural History Museum and at the tar pits, you know, giving public tours and giving animal presentations and educating the public about the stuff that I love the most, which is my favorite thing to do and still is, I actually found the Raymond M. Museum of Paleontology, my favorite place in the entire world in Claremont, California, a mere 40 minutes from Los Angeles. So I applied for a position. It was a paid BLM, Bureau of Land Management position, and it was for cataloging and identifying bones from the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument and the Barstow Formation in California. And so I said, oh my God, this is great. I get to get paid. It's like 1 day a week, maybe. It's not a lot of time, and it sounds great. So that's where I met Dr. Andy Farkey, who is one of my best friends and the coolest person in the entire world. Please have him on your show. He is unreal. He's amazing. He's the best. He actually married Lee and I. We had him ordained via online marriage certificate. We think our marriage is probably legal. I think it's probably fine.
If you guys have made it this far, I would think so,
Right? So legally, I think we're good.
Close enough.
I don't see no problems here.
So, the ALF Museum, so I actually interviewed on the phone with Andy, and he gave it to me, just out of the goodness of his heart, and he thought I sounded cool, and I didn't have to interview in person. And so I got this gig being an intern for the Bureau of Land Management 1 day a week at the ALF Museum. And for anyone listening to this podcast, please go to the Raymond M. ALF Museum. It was the best experience. It is the coolest museum, the best collection, the best people. Gabe Santos, who is there now, took my position when I left. It was actually my position and sort of a new one. But so long story short, I was a BLM intern. Andy loved me so much that he hired me on as assistant curator, and I was assistant curator for 5 years, and I got to work with the coolest bones. I went out to the Grand Staircase, excavated dinosaurs, dreams came true, so cool. So I was working this many days. I was working 5 days at the Natural History Museum in LA and in the La Brea Tar Pits, and I was working 1 day a week at the ALF Museum, and driving 40 minutes up there on Fridays. And then I had 1 day off on Saturdays to take care of whatever I needed, which is not a good idea, but I did it and made it work and worked really hard at it and loved every minute of working at 3 museums at once. I think that's a record. Anyone can contest me if they want, but I'm pretty sure I win for most museums.
I don't think I know anyone else who've worked that many museums at one time, so I can't contend with that.
I don't know anybody who's bounced around museums either, so.
So I'm pretty sure, yeah. So yay! But that is my long story of my pathway through academia and into the world of both education and paleontology.
Well, actually, did the zoo did the zoo in each museum give you a crash course, or did they tell you to just wing it, or how did you do your job? Going from one to the other like that.
Well, yeah. So we mean informal education?
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, my history of informal education started with my hometown zoo, and I was actually a zoo camp counselor through that. So. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, so I started off when I was, I think, 18 or 17, working at the zoo, being a camp counselor. So that's why the zoo was like, oh, cool, we'll hire you. You already have experience.
Gotcha.
And then the museum, Natural History Museum in Tar Pits, said, oh my gosh, you have all this education experience working from both your hometown museum or hometown zoo and the LA zoo. So, you'd be a perfect fit for us too. And so it was just kind of building and building and building upon the things that I was already doing.
Yeah.
But I think just naturally, I love educating people about things because I wear my heart on my sleeve, and everything that I learn, I'm like, oh, hey guys, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? And so when social media became a thing, that's when I really got a platform to shout from all of the rooftops. And I'm like, you guys, look at all this cool stuff in the world. you need to know about this thing that I just learned about. Yeah. So that's kind of where my love of SciComm.
Yeah, I definitely have always gotten that impression from your Twitter and your Facebook and all that, and I think it's really clear that you're really passionate about teaching people things and really just showing your love for the subject and educating people about it. And I just wanted to comment on your story. That's really fascinating. I always love hearing these stories about people not necessarily figuring out what they want to do or having a tough time getting through it, because I always think, with professionals and stuff, they're, some of the most intelligent people. They excel at school. They find what they want to do and get the experience they need, no problem. And, with me, I'm not a perfect A student. I'm like a B, very rarely a C student. So I'm not like in that perfect group where, compared to other students like from high school who were just brilliant and everything. I always love hearing stories about people who actually do struggle but end up succeeding. It's an inspirational thing for me, and I just love hearing about it. So it's nice to hear you went through the same thing, but you ended up a lot much better off for it, and you ended up getting a lot of experience through just trying to figure what you wanted to do out and becoming very much more prepared if you went instead of going a linear direction with it. I think that's a really inspirational thing for a student, especially like me.
Well, and especially
so
like...
really...
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I really feel like... there are probably more stories like this than everyone realizes, because everyone just thinks that it's so perfect and, oh, they were so smart and they were valedictorian and this, that, and the other. But, like, Lee wasn't that way, and several people I know were not that way. And so I think it's important to tell those stories. Like, yeah, I was bad at math. I was a terrible test taker, and I probably had... What I'm realizing now is I think I switched numbers. I'm realizing that now in my later life. Like, I'm now like 33, and I just now realize, because I've been married to Lee, and sometimes I'll write stuff down, but I'll like flip my numbers sometimes. So I'm like, is that why I was bad at math? Like, I don't know, maybe.
Who knows? But yeah, especially since the job outcome, for the number of jobs for paleontologists is very small. Like the number is like what, 150 employed paleontologists in the country, is that right? Or
I don't know. I mean,
all I know, it's a very
small. What you're counting. If you're counting thinking academia, and then there's teaching. As far as like some people teach in like community colleges and things like that. So there's that kind of academia. There's community colleges. There's the private sector of what Lee used to do, like paleo mitigation. Museums, what else am I missing? So many other things.
I understand, yeah. But basically, it's because of that, and some of the, paleontologists at the museum have told me, about this, and just that, kind of have to be, rise above the crowd to kind of, try to get get to a position like they are, but it's always nice hearing about these stories of people, who aren't like these super smart, super, organized people who can easily get through these things no problem because they're so skillful, and they still end up in a position where they wanted to, when starting out in paleo, like I wanted, pursue paleontology as a career, going through struggles, but eventually I got there. I always love hearing stories about that because it gives me inspiration for myself, and kind of a little bit of confidence, that I can make it through, because it just feels like it's overwhelming odds, kind of getting somewhere, where you're working in the field you love, but also maintaining a, comfortable lifestyle, being paid and living in, pretty good conditions, and all of that. So it's always great hearing about these stories.
Well, and what's really important, just on that note, while we're there, is like, you don't have to be an academic to be a paleontologist, and that is something that is not said very often. It's not like out there. Like, there's so many people that are paleontologists that do not, work at a university, and so you know, there are these different jobs, and definitely if you guys aren't already, join our paleo education Facebook group, because we talk about this kind of stuff, and you know, we have things that we share as far as you know, career paths, and you know, students who are inquiring about things. We talk about programs we plan, other methods of educating people, and you know, it is really important to follow the passion that you like, but also make it your own, right? So like, do paleontology, but do it
I was gonna say
that you know.
Yeah, so I'm actually, you know, I joined that page because this is something I also wanted to talk about, you know, kind of a connection between you and I. It was, you know, Tara Lepore who invited me to that page, and several others, because first off, I want to say Tara's one of the most lovely people I've ever met, you know, because I met her doing a field program with Robert Gay in 2016, and she was assisting with him on the project. And the students, I always called her our field mother, because, you know, she always wanted to make sure we're taking care of, like, are you making sure you're doing this? Are you eating enough? Are you drinking enough
Italian.
water? Are you doing it? And then whenever, you know, because you know, while working out there, I definitely had, you know, I might talk about it at one point, but just some, you know, issues that was going on between, you know, me and some other things revolving around it. I don't want to talk about it personally too much to say, just given if anyone hears it, but Tara was such an amazing help with kind of, you know, getting me to a better place, you know, and making me feel better about things. And, you know, she sometimes, you know, I sometimes talk with her one-on-one on some advice or just kind of a confidence boost. Yeah. And she was always just helpful and amazing when doing that, you know.
Yeah,
so
she really
one of the
is.
most amazing people.
She's like, she's just like naturally nurturing, and like, you know, I look up to her for that for sure, because sometimes I feel like a jerk. Like just the way that I like am, or something I'll do, like not like outwardly towards someone, but she's just so sweet and amazing and supportive. And we work together on the paleo education symposium or workshop, I should say.
I remember about it, and I think that's maybe where I actually remember hearing about you. Because that was what, like the SVP of 2016, right? Or was it last year? I can't remember.
Yeah, in Canada.
Yeah, okay. I remember, I think it was, because I think that's probably where I heard about you, is like something revolving around, you know, the whole woman in STEM thing, which, you know, I'll talk about when we ask questions about that later throughout, but I think that's where I remember hearing about you and kind of getting involved, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Greg, do you want to answer the next question?
Okay. Some of them may have actually been partially answered here, but if they have been, I'll clarify. My second question was, what are your fondest memories of working at the Raymond M. Alf Museum in LA County Natural History Museum before you finally ended up in Cleveland, Ashley?
Okay. My fondest memories of working at the museum. Okay, I'll start with the Alf Museum. The Alf Museum is a really special place because it is a museum on a high school campus. And it is a private high school, but the students get to actually work with the fossils, and they do projects with the fossils. And as part of my job, I was there and you know, supervising some of them sometimes, but just being there and being around them, it was a very cool atmosphere. And I just love the Alf Museum because it was so different than any place I had known. And Andy Farkey is the greatest human. I cannot say enough about him. He is so much fun to work with, and every day that I was there was just a blast. Like, whether it was like me finding a new fossil in the collection, you know, because my job was to go through identify and catalog what it was, put it in the database. But every once in a while, I would find something, and I would run to Andy's office, and I would interrupt whatever he was doing, which he probably loved. He's like working on editing a paper for PLOS or something, and I'm like, "Hey, Andy, guess what this is?" And
sure.
but he loved it, I'm sure. But I would run in, and the coolest thing, so one day I actually found a bone that was very strange looking, and I did not recognize it. And when I didn't recognize something, I would go ask another opinion of someone. And I took it to Andy, and I said, "Andy, what do you think this is?" And he said, "Oh, that's really weird. I don't know. It looks like either bird or fish. Because when you see a weird bone that doesn't look like a theropod or a hadrosaur or, I don't know, an ornithomimid, it's usually bird, fish, turtle, croc, something, small and strange." And so I start... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I said I know what that's like when I was prepping stuff. We sometimes find weird little bones, and, at the time, Mike Getty was editing the lab, and I always... Yeah, I know.
I just made a frowny face for those listening because Mike Getty is gone.
Yeah, him and I were really close, but not get off topic, of course. Bones
are weird sometimes.
Huh?
Bones are weird sometimes.
Well, I know, and I felt like I kind of had a similar relationship with him that you and Andy had, especially with interrupting whatever he was doing and bothering him probably at the most inconvenient time. Just ask him like, "Hey, can you check on this? I found this weird thing. Can you check it out?" Or something like that. And sometimes we'd come across those like outliers and kind of the same thing, like, "Oh, it's probably a bird or crocodile or turtle,"
or fish.
Because we have or fish, yeah. And we, because we have Tyler Lease is expert on turtle and turtle evolution. We always like to collect a lot of turtles, like from Grand Staircase, a little bit of like I think Hell Creek as well. So we would have a lot of those around. So I definitely know what that's like, finding weird stuff that we either place in 4 pre-designated categories.
Yeah, super cool. Like, so I took this bone, and I was like, "Andy, what is this bone?" And he's like, "I don't know, it's probably fish." So I start looking through, like, I have all my, like, osteo references, and I'm going through all the birds, and, looking at all these different animal bones, and I'm like, "I don't know, I don't think it's fish." So we went back to it again, and he found a reference from, once again, Dr. Chiappe, and it was actually, turned out, so long story short, turned out to be the first enantiornithine bird from the Grand Staircase. So that was like the coolest memory I have from the ALF, like being like, "Holy crap, this is like the first one, and we found it in this drawer, and it's super awesome." And so that ended up being published. But my other greatest memories include going to the Grand Staircase and excavating. That was actually my first dinosaur dig, was actually being out at the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument in Utah. And then just, the ALF is just an amazing place. So just being there is great. And the people that work there are great. Don Lofgren, who is the director of the museum, is also an amazing human. So the people there are amazing. At NHMLA and the tar pits, it was an insanely busy, intense job. Like, educator on steroids. Like, I imagine getting to the museum at 9 o'clock. Every single hour of your day is planned out. So from 9 to 10, you're somewhere. 10 to 11, 11 to 12. Then you have lunch. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. I was on my feet all the time. So I was eating like, a champion like athlete or something, because I could, and I was running around all day, and I would go from the dinosaur hall to the butterfly pavilion to doing an animal presentation to doing a tour that I developed, and then going home and being so tired that I would just collapse. And so I never really got away from being exhausted in LA. It just got worse. And
it's
so
exercise.
But like, who can argue with like being at the tar pits all the time and just being able to be there and see fossils excavated every single day in front of your face, and being the first human or the second or the third human to actually see that bone was like the coolest thing ever. So
absolutely,
just,
amazing thing.
It's so cool.
Everyone may not realize that it's still a working dig, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, the tar pits.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go there today, tomorrow, and there will be excavators out at Project 23, which is the excavation that happened when the art museum next door was digging for their underground parking structure. And there's these giant crates of asphalt sitting around outside in these wooden boxes. And there's people working on them every single day, and you can see paleontology happen in the real. It's so cool.
Yeah, you know, that this was something I was gonna bring up too, because actually right before I went out on that dig with Tara, I was actually in California, and to kind of backtrack to give a little bit of backstory, these two guys, they were twins, Sean and...
Yes, Sean and Bo.
Yeah, Sean and Bo. So they came by the Denver Museum to talk with one of our, lab curators about microfossil prep techniques, because they do a lot of that, research and everything. And I happened to be working on, at the time I was working, picking microfossils from Snowmass during the whole Snowmastodon exhibition. But anyways, when they came by, I kind of struck a conversation with the two of them. We were kind of, just talking about different stuff. I can't really remember. But then, I was like, yeah, I'm actually going to be, because this is like January of 2016. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be coming down to California, later this summer, just as a family vacation. They were like, well, if you want, we can give you, show you around the whole facility and everything. And I was like, I can't say no to that. So I went with my dad, and I went there, and it was Sean who met us there, and he showed me through, Pit 23, right? Or is it Excavation
Project 23? Yeah.
Or Project 23.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we started there. I got to see all the different crates they had of asphalt. And one of my profile pictures for the longest time was me kind of, he was showing me this pile of direwolf bones they had. It was a section of the lower jaw. They had an exposed proximal humerus. They had, fragments of the radius and ulna, a bunch of different stuff. And my profile picture on Facebook for the longest time was me standing beside that clump of bones.
So cool.
And then they showed me around the lab. Oh, what?
So cool.
Oh, it was amazing seeing it firsthand, seeing paleontology in action. And I got to see their lab. What was that?
If you're listening and you have not been to the La Brea Tar Pits and you do not know what the La Brea Tar Pits is, go to the La Brea Tar Pits and do yourself a favor and go see paleontology in action. Because also what's really cool and was neat about working there is that you got to, break people's brains about what paleontology is. Because it's not dinosaurs. And they're like, what? This isn't dinosaurs? You don't find dinosaurs at the tar pits? And you're like, no, this is Ice Age animals. And then, you get to see animals that are not in your traditional, Matrix setting of, being in the Badlands.
Yeah,
You're like, I'm in the middle of LA, and there's bones literally underneath my feet. And so...
exactly, yeah.
You're not out in the Badlands. This is not dinosaurs. Fossils do not have to be petrified or permineralized, even though some of them are. The majority of them are just saturated with asphalt. So
basically.
The fun part of my tour, or fun part of my job, was actually myth busting.
Oh, I can imagine that being a really fun educational experience.
Yeah, my tours at the tar
but
pits,
as I was saying,
I can't ever replicate those again. That was like the greatest tour.
I wish I could have been in one of those tours. But
Same.
Yeah, so they were showing me through the lab stuff, and showing me some of the mammoths they were working on. They had a name for the mammoth. It was the name that comes to mind is I think it was Ted or something. I could be totally wrong. I can't remember the name, but they had what was it?
Zed with a Z.
Yes, that was it. That was Zeb. It was Zeb that they were showing me. They were showing me one of the tusks they uncovered, and then I think maybe the skull, but I can't remember. It was like right in the lab with all the windows and stuff.
Yep,
and then,
the tusk was uncovered there for a while, and the skull was actually upside down, so you saw the upside.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that, and it was an amazing experience. Then they gave us tickets to go check out the LA County Museum, and it was funny, your reaction to it as well, like, what, there's a museum here? Like, that was my reaction personally, too, like, what, there's a natural history museum? What? Like, it was crazy, and I honestly had, I want to say almost beat by beat, the same reaction you had when first going through. It was such an amazing place, and the displays were absolutely amazing.
Well, because you went when the new dinosaur hall was there, right? With Thomas and Thomas the T-Rex.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, the dinosaur or T-Rex growth series display. Yeah, right. Yep. I was there when that happened. Cool. I took an amazing picture of me next to all three of them in such a perfect... Well, I didn't take the picture, my dad did, but it was a fantastic picture with me and all three of them in the foreground. It was awesome, and I actually gave a talk for the Western Interior Paleontological Society, which is a fossil group for paleontology enthusiasts here in Colorado. And that was a lot of fun talking about. But basically, I just figured I'd bring it up because, I know I kind of experienced that, the behind the scenes of La Brea, and also just kind of this, when you're talking about your, your reaction to being there.
I mean, the LA County Museum gets overshadowed by Hollywood, and so you go to LA and you're like, all right, I'm going to do the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and then I'm going to go see, Venice Beach, and then I'm going to go to this place I've heard of, but you haven't, the museum's not on everyone's radar, and so you really have to you have to either be into museums or you have to have a really good marketing campaign around it. So
it has the famous T-Rex versus Triceratops mount that you see on TV and commercials all the time and stuff. And the artist who sculpted the fleshed out ones that are outside, he lives right up here by me in Auburn, California.
Oh, cool! Very cool. That's awesome.
And of course, the page has an entire wall of dire wolf skulls.
Oh yes.
The thrones here. This are
iconic.
So, fun fact.
Site paintings.
I know we probably have to get on with some more questions.
It's so fun.
I know we have to get on with some more questions, but real quick. So about the dire wolf wall, that was actually one of my requirements when I was dating people. Was one of these guys who messaged me, I was on an online dating app or something. One of these guys messaged me and he's like, have you been to the La Brea tar pits? They have a whole wall of saber-toothed tiger skulls. And I was like, deal breaker. Not saber-toothed tiger anymore. It's saber-toothed cat. B, if you would have paid attention to label copy, you would know those are dire wolves.
That's funny.
So, girls can be nerds too, everybody. Totally.
Right.
They sure can.
I definitely learned that from my magazine, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I was like, click, bye.
You're done. Get out. Well, I guess you already answered the third question was about your experience with your first dig. And everything, and you already were talking about the experience.
Yeah, I can elaborate though, because that was a cool dig.
Yeah,
I mean, if you'd like to. Yeah.
So the first dig that I was on was actually a really important one because that summer was the summer that, or maybe the first or second summer that we had gone out to excavate baby Joe, the baby Parasaurolophus, which is the only known Parasaurolophus baby right now. And I'll have you know, my favorite dinosaur from the time I was 4 years old.
Uh-huh.
So that was the coolest thing to actually not only go out to LA and figure out what I was doing out there and if I was going to be a zookeeper and stuff, but then going to that museum, landing at the museum in that career and being like, okay, now you get to go excavate your childhood favorite dinosaur. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
And then like
especially with
yeah, like Parasaurolophus, man, it's the best hadrosaur ever. And so like I got to go out to Grand Staircase Escalante, which by the way is no small feat. Like that is the world's hardest field site. I will fight anyone. Like albeit like snow is pretty difficult, but like actually going out to Grand Staircase where we were excavating was 6 miles walking.
Really?
Yeah,
like
I've heard the stories.
6 miles walking.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing that you should do. Like that's so far.
Yeah.
So a lot of those fossils, you know, it's one of the world's, last greatest fossil sites because you literally can't get there.
Yeah.
And then you have to raise money like the Denver Museum does to actually get a helicopter. And
exactly.
You have to get the fossils out by helicopter and you have to get the people out by helicopter. So it's like excuse my language, it's so badass to like go do that.
Yeah.
And I was not able to do like a helicopter ride, but I did actually go see Baby Joe in the field in situ and see skin impressions on him because Baby Joe also has, he's actually got mummified beak. He's got skin impressions like all over his body, and then he's got like a little teeny tiny bump on his head where you can start to see the adult Parasaurolophus crest. So.
Wow, yeah. And Parasaurolophus is a rare find too.
Yeah.
Not to mention.
I remember hearing, I think, from like Joe about. I think this was like, I can't remember how years ago. It was like I think 2 or 3 years ago. I could be totally off, but I remember there was like a flood event that happened while they were there, and it was like a super crazy experience for them. So it was one of the things you can't contest with. I think that's definitely one of the hardest places to. I mean, I haven't been there, of course, but just going off. What everyone, I want to. I haven't been able to because just with school and everything, like first off, I had to be 18 to actually go to a dig. I'm 19 now, but I was actually able to go to my first couple of digs last year. Then school kind of got in the way, but I'm hoping this year maybe get down. But I haven't been following the whole political news about revocation of those lands. I'll have to see, or I have to check with them to see if those affect the site we have. But,
I wonder if any of your sites were compromised, because I know with the redrawing of the boundaries there within Grand Staircase, a lot of those actually became unprotected. So
I feel like I think I've heard, I haven't talked to, with school and everything, I actually haven't been back to the museum for a while now. Because I've been trying to focus straight on school, but from what I've heard from other people, I think unfortunately a lot of the sites were compromised. I can't say that's for certain, but that's what I've heard, unfortunately. So like I said, I'll have to see if when I try to apply to go, how recent events may affect the digs, but I'll have to see. That's really cool, especially since Parasaurolophus is a pretty comment on me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty common dinosaur to find in Grand. A dream experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really, really cool. And I was in one of those flood events as well, although, because in Grand Staircase, it's so, like, the topography of the land, like, there's really low lows and really high highs, and so when you're. So, for example, I was going down, we were leaving the site for the day, and we were walking back, and it started to rain, and we started to panic because we were out, like, a couple miles still, and when it starts to rain and you're in the middle of nowhere, like, there's nowhere to go. Like, there's the trees out there aren't going to protect you because they're, like, this big, like, they're really not that tall. And, like, you're just out in the middle of nowhere. So when we were trying to cross down this low part, this sort of valley, Andy Farkey was actually ahead of me, and he jumped over this kind of low area and started walking back up the other side, and I was about to go down, and a flash flood came through. And I was so freaked out because then I was like, oh my God, I'm stuck over here and he's over there and I don't know what to do. And so I had to like wait it out for like a half an hour until the water got down low enough and went away. But the dangers of field work, are real. You got to be careful.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah, for sure. But it's really interesting hearing about that. In fact, my favorite dinosaur is actually Ceratops, just because I think it's just a weird dinosaur that's like a hybrid between ceratopsian and the bull. So it's kind of interesting both of them are found in the same area. But yeah, do you want to move on to the next question, Greg?
Well, yes. Scott had mentioned a particular fossil that was at the LA Museum of Obscurity at CMNH. It was of a pregnant plesiosaur.
Yes. Oh, it was the coolest fossil. Yeah, our Polycotylus. Oh my God, she's so cool. That was one of the greatest things about working at the LA Natural History Museum, was actually being in the gallery and getting to talk about her on my tour. It is such a cool fossil. It was found by the Bonner family in Kansas. And if you Google search like Kansas, I think it's Castle Valley, there are these huge chalk monuments. It kind of looks like castles sticking out in the middle of nowhere. And there are these big chalky cliffs. And that's where Sternberg used to hunt for fossils and found some incredible, marine reptiles and pterosaurs and mosasaurs. And so, there's this amazing pregnant plesiosaur fossil. She was found with the bones of her baby, much like some ichthyosaurs are, kind of like in the, belly region of the animal. And it was just the coolest thing to see, because you can see the little tiny humerus of the baby, and it looks like a mini version of mom. Because you never know when you find a fossil if it was like food or, another animal that died next to it. But this is actually like a tiny baby, adorable plesiosaur. And what was really cool, not a lot of people know this, when you look at the fossil at a certain time of day, this is like some Da Vinci Code stuff.
Wow.
When you look at the fossil at a certain time of day, in a certain season, the way that the sunlight comes through the gallery hits the corner of the plesiosaur and casts a rainbow.
Ooh,
on the plesiosaur, and it's the coolest thing. I'll post a picture later if I can find it.
Oh, cool.
I think I saw that. I was going to say that I can attest to that, because when I was visiting the LA County Museum, they had that on display, and I thought it was a really beautiful thing. And I actually, earlier last year, near the end of the year, I met, can't remember his name, the British paleontologist who studies ichthyosaurs.
Dean Lomax?
What?
Dean Lomax?
Yeah, Dean. He gave a talk for WIPS and was talking about that. And in fact, I actually, after his talk, I read the whole paper, read it and everything. And I thought it was such an amazing discovery that was found. And it's a beautiful specimen. I think now that you bring up the rainbow thing, I think I was there, because like I could be wrong. Like, isn't it like kind of in the afternoon when the sun's like kind of?
Yep, like 4 p.m.
Yeah, I was like there around 3 or 4, and I remember I think actually seeing it happen, and I kind of like yeah, that's pretty cool. Wow.
It was the coolest thing. And also, if you haven't yet, download the paper for Polycotylus latipinus. It is the coolest paper. It's a really well-written paper, and it's also got some cool figures in it with the mom and the baby. And when I was at the LA County Museum, part of my job was to actually provide that material to other educators who weren't, into paleontology as much as I was. So that was like a really cool part of my job as an educator, and not something that people think about, is actually providing primary sources for those who can't have access to them or don't know how to get that. So download the paper. It's really cool.
I'll have to check this out after
I remember I remember the figures were really nice, and they really detailed the differences between the elements from the mother and the baby. And I know we probably should move on to the next question, but I thought it was a really well done And I think the paper, like you said, is very well written. You know, I'm not, fluent with scientific literature. You know, it's one of the things I'm still learning to really understand and use on my own as a student, but I can definitely recognize the paper was very well written and was definitely interesting to read. So, yeah, I would also recommend reading it. But
Yep. And you know what's interesting about scientific papers is the more you read them, the more they make sense.
Especially when you're really, going through the paper. And like what I used to do, and I kind of still do when reading papers, is I always, for every word I don't know, I always make sure I highlight it and then Google search it, and then kind of write the definitions down. And I remember I was reading a paper, end of 2016. It wasn't really like a good, significant paper. It was about some fragmented remains of like a Nezutoceratops. That the Denver Museum told wasn't really like a significant paper, to say the least, because there wasn't much to talk about. But regardless, I was reading it, and I always was like highlighting just basic anatomical work like distal, proximal. Well, I kind of knew about proximal and distal, but like more like dorsal, rostrum, and all these different terms. Remember them, writing them down, and it took me like days to get through it, just because it was something I'd never really done before.
It's basically like really learning a different language. Yeah.
Essentially, yeah, because you gotta understand, the words and their meanings and stuff, because it's like it's in a different language in the sense that it's like English, but it's like completely different. It doesn't really
Greek,
on the surface
or Latin.
give you, unless you know those. It's like the word doesn't really give you an idea about what it's referring to unless you know the Latin or the definition. It was definitely hard, but
it's some papers are easier to read than others, and some are more fun to read than others, and some are really boring. Like, I'll admit that. Like, sometimes I can't get through a paper and I'll skip to the end where it says, summary. But, if that's the other thing, if you're a good writer, if you know how to communicate science well and in a way people can understand, then your papers can come across a little more readable if you want that. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I applaud Dean for being a great writer in that sense, and not only making it understandable, but, I understand.
Dean Lomax.
Shout out to you, Dean. You're great. But, I know in education, there's a kind of balance. I think I remember seeing something or another paleo educator, but kind of the balance between entertainment and education has to be a really fine balance. Making sure the person reading it, is actually enjoying reading it. But I feel like Dean did a really good job of not only making it understandable, but enjoyable and interesting to read. And I really like reading papers like that do both of those, because not only do you want to read more, but you're learning a lot more in the process of great writing. But
exactly.
Not to get too far off.
I think that's a pretty good place to wrap up right there. Sam wanted to field his first question.
My first question is, how diverse do you personally believe dinosaurs were?
Well, so kind of looking at dinosaurs and what we know of them for right now, what's our latest species count, or what we're calling species? Is it 1,000 something? Is it more than that? I don't know. But we do have a huge range right now of everything from the little tiny ducky-looking thing that just came out. What was its name?
Halskaraptor.
Halskaraptor. Love it. It was so cool when that came out. And Yichi and all of these very strange little birdie things, all the way up into sauropods with club tails. So we've got this huge, amazing range. And then when you think about the diversity that could have been and that did not preserve, it sort of blows your mind, because right now, on the planet, when you think about all the dinosaurs that we have today, it's like 10,000, is it no, it's like 11,000 birds or something like that. I just heard the stat from Mark Norell. But we have so many species right now on Earth that have diversified since the KPG extinction. And you think back to the entire time that dinosaurs and non-avian dinosaurs had been on the planet, and it's just incredible to think about the sort of diversity that could have been and did not preserve. So the fossil record is very fickle, and it is very exciting, but it yields very few amazing specimens, so it's left for us to imagine what's left.
Actually, you were kind of cutting out between, like, I think you're asking about the number of species, and then you cut back into, like, something about Yichi. What were you saying there? Because I totally missed that whole part out.
Oh, so I was saying that, we have these little weird birdie things like Yichi, and we've got Hulscaraptor, and all of these little, interesting-looking dinosaurs, all the way up into the huge sauropods like Patagotitan, and, sauropods with club tails, and, this huge, like, size range. And then you think about the length of time that dinosaurs had evolved and were evolving. And long story short, the fossil record is very fickle, and it only gives us like a tiny little peek into, what could have been. And, it just leaves you with so many questions, which is why paleontology is so amazing, is because you always want more.
I think there were species. I think there were species of dinosaurs that were probably like nothing that we currently think is even possible for a dinosaur.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, and who just broke that? It was, Hulscaraptor looks, sort of like a merganser or something, which is cool. But then Yichi blew my mind. That was the last fossil where I saw that and went, what is this? I was at work. I was actually at the tar pits when Yichi was published, and I remember staring at the computer and thinking, what in God's name, what the hell is this? This is the craziest looking thing.
Well, when I first saw that, I actually kind of thought it looked a little bit like a tiny dragon of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, this is incredible. Like, what am I looking at? And then you're questioning, like, is this really what it was? Or was this, like, a mess up on someone's end? Like, the interpretation of the fossil.
I don't want to, take away from anyone else who has any questions, but I just had a quick question, since we're kind of talking about dinosaur diversity and kind of, having some fossil evidence left out, from the fossil record. I wanted to ask about your, like, thoughts on the paper that was written last year about the complete revamping of the dinosaur cladistics by Barron and all of them. I just wanted to know what you think about that.
Absolutely. Great question. As an educator, I will say it was really interesting to try to convey that to my colleagues at work, because I came in and I had sent them, when something new comes out, I send them the link, and then I send them, to, I'll send them the paper, and I'll send them, like, popular articles that have come out around them, like on phys.org or like Science Daily or whatever, Nat Geo. And so I had to, like, contact Matt, because I was like, hey, can you send me, like, the diagram that you guys have? Because I can't seem to find it, and I need to tell my coworkers what's going on. Because if you really want to learn something, try to explain it to someone else. That is how you know if you really know your stuff. Because I am still, like, I think it's great that things are changing. I think fossils will change the way that we look about, the way we think about dinosaurs. Everything we know now is going to be different in 10, 20 years. And so...
changing, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I am all for a switch up of anything. I think science is a moving, evolving process, and it's going to change, and we are not going to like it. It is going to be hard. It is not going to be easy to accept. And,
of course, yeah.
And that's one of those
things. That doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything you know is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, when the whole Brontosaurus thing, like God forbid.
Oh yeah,
Bronto's back.
And then it's back, and then it's like,
Bronto is
my
back.
God.
He's here to stay.
Just real quick, you know what I always thought was weird, even as a kid, is the theropods are the bird-like dinosaurs that turned into birds. Why did they have the lizard hips? And now we're reversing that.
that's always
That was the let's name it for what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's why they did that. They're like, this looks like a lizard hips, and this one looks like a bird pelvis. And then they didn't know later on that we would say, hey, actually, it's the other way around.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Exactly, yeah. I remember the day that was published and put around social media, I was actually working in the lab during that time, and I think Joe Sertich and Mike were around at the time. And I was like, excuse my language, but I was like, holy shit, this is totally crazy. Like I'm sure it was everyone's reaction, like, this changes everything. And I remember I was trying to one of the examples of trying to interrupt, kind of
Greg, you beat that out, right?
exactly.
I'm not gonna mind it.
I said excuse my language, so I gave the warning. But basically, going back to what I was saying, is that it's one of the I guess inappropriate times I tried to interrupt Mike from whatever he was doing. I was like trying to show him this whole thing, and I think I can't really remember it since it was sort of a while ago. But like I think it was kind of just like dismissive and like, oh, I'll check it out later. But it was just a crazy thing, And that was actually something today we were discussing in that Dinosaurs of Colorado class, and kind of talking about, comparing the old, standard cladistic system versus this new one that's been proposed. And, I think it's a good thing you said is that, many people won't like it, but ultimately it doesn't matter because as long as this
science goes on,
this idea, can either, it can, over time we can see if this idea has, flaws with it, us trying to poke holes at it to see any flaws with it, or, it can stand in a better light than the old one, and maybe, the kind of supported family relationships between these dinosaurs. And it's funny too, because
I'll tell you a secret of why I didn't go into dinosaur taxonomy. So the reason I didn't go into dinosaur taxonomy is because through studying animals today, extant animals and animal behavior, it messed me up so much that I can't even... I can't take dinosaur taxonomy seriously at all. Like, I can only accept things on the genus level, and then sometimes not even that. Because when I was studying birds, you can have... So, for example, you have the eastern flicker, which is a type of woodpecker, and you have the western flicker, which is the same species, quote unquote, but it lives west of the Rockies. So you have the eastern flicker, the western flicker. They're separated by a mountain range, but they could interbreed. Like, they are totally interbreedable, right? They've got the same bones. They've got the same exact structure. Nothing looks different about their morphology. But then they're two separate species because of DNA. Like, or are they? Like, it's so confusing. And so if you had a tyrannosaur in the north and a tyrannosaur in the south that was separated by some geographic barrier, that's one thing. But, you've also got really similar animals living in the same areas that can't interbreed, and their bones also may look the same. Like, it's so hard,
Yeah, see, it was actually funny because I think that was the exact example of those woodpeckers, like Nicole was using in the class today, because she was explaining how separate species is the ability to interbreed with one another and produce viable offspring. It makes it, on the surface at least, going off your experience, easier to classify. So then when you're trying to identify dinosaurs, just based off anatomy, it becomes a whole lot harder because these organisms aren't around anymore, and you don't know if they can interbreed or not, or this other, evidence we would see in living animals, like behaviors and stuff like that, colors, or basically infinite amount of other stuff. We just have to go by the bones, and that's why we have like all these controversies.
The other
into thing, obviously, because.
Yeah, the other thing about that too is you can have the same like quote unquote species, but then they won't even look at each other because there is one group in the north and one group in the south that don't speak the same dialect. Like it's like
That's
having
exactly
a southern
what
accent.
Yeah, the songs they sing are completely different, and therefore they're not attracted to each other because it's like completely different. Like, not dialogue, like language. She mentioned that too.
Like, we're a little bit different because sometimes you find someone with an accent a little bit like, I don't know, more attractive than people with your own accent. But it's different with birds because you could have a cardinal in the north and a cardinal in the south, and they would have different songs, and they wouldn't even look at each other.
How about Homo sapiens and Neanderthals? We now know that they bred, and they could be more different in some ways. By the way, that was not a microphone problem with Ashley. That was her black cat walking all over her desk. She might be a witch. We're not sure yet.
Cats.
I know. Yeah,
that throws a whole wrench in the
can't see us.
system.
That is my cat totally just like photobombed me.
Speaking of hybridization of the fossil record, there was also some recent evidence that found that Colombian woolly mammoths actually did interbreed in certain parts of the states where their ranges intersected.
Absolutely, and that ties together the tar pits too, because the tar pits we never found woolly mammoth. There are no woolly mammoths at the tar pits. There's only Colombian mammoth because it was the southern range. But yeah, absolutely, you could probably interbreed with those guys. I mean, they shared some of the same range.
Yeah. Basically, it's a whole big mess trying to classify all these animals based off rules. But yeah.
Well, like I always say, it's nice that we try to classify things, but people shouldn't be set in their ways when it comes to like, this is this and this is that. It's like, no, nature does not belong in boxes. Did you learn nothing from Jurassic Park?
We were actually talking about Jurassic Park in our class and like its effect on, the current generation of paleontologists, I'm sure yourself included. Then kind of its accuracies and multiple inaccuracies.
Yeah.
But not to get too distracted with that, because I'm sure we have more questions to ask.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I will say like Jurassic Park is the reason that I wanted to pursue paleontology in the first place, and it has a huge place in my life. So.
Yeah, I think one of the questions will be talking about that, I think, so we might be able to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true. And,
foreshadow.
Yes, it's a foreshadow here, folks. Anyhow, I'm going to start off on the next topic discussion, the fossil fish of Cleveland. So I can pull up my questions here.
I just got really excited.
Alright, so what have all been the most fascinating fossilized fish that have been found in the Devonian shell around the Cleveland area? And overall, what can you tell us about the different types of fish species that have been found within the Cleveland area? And of particular interest, how many different species of coelacanth were found within the Devonian shell around Cleveland? And then after this, I will allow Scott to begin his round of questions regarding this in more depth.
I am so excited that you wanted to ask about fossil fish of Cleveland, because when I moved from LA to Cleveland, and the reason we did is because my husband Lee got the job as vertebrate paleontology preparator at the museum, which is fabulous, and he runs the lab there now. I had no idea. No one ever talks about the incredible fossils of Cleveland until we moved here. Like, we never heard about fossil fish of Cleveland. Like, in social media, like, there really wasn't anyone in the department before, Lee arrived that was able to use social media or actually get things out on the internet that was not in an academic journal. And so anytime you search Dunkleosteus, if you actually go on Twitter and search Dunkleosteus, you'll see like Lee and pictures of him and Dunkleosteus, or me and Dunkleosteus, because Dunkleosteus, as we always say, is the T-Rex of the ocean or of the sea. It was the biggest apex predator of the time, or at least one of the biggest. There are several other big fish in Cleveland that lived here. But Dunkleosteus is definitely our star of Cleveland. So for those of you who don't know that Cleveland has fossil fish, they are found in the shale around Cleveland and actually in Cleveland. So when you drive about 15 minutes west of here, we're kind of in East Cleveland, you will see what is called the Rocky River. And it is a river that has cut down through the geology of the area, and exposed are these beautiful gray shale cliffs where you can find these big bony arthrodires that swam the sea, here in Cleveland. And so, for years, the museum has had these fish. And you've all seen them. Every single one of us has seen Dunkleosteus, either in a book or now video games, and especially because our casting technician cast, I think, like less than 100, but there's a Dunkleosteus at any museum. And it's either one from Morocco, or most likely the real, the skull that we have at the museum. It was cast like 30 or 60 times, I can't remember. But you can see it in Paris, you can see it at the CMNH, you can see it at the Royal Tyrrell Museum, you can see it all sorts of different places, the Field Museum. And so moving here and actually seeing all these fossil fish was incredible. There is, besides Dunkleosteus, and that's how you pronounce it, a lot of people say Dunkleosteus, but it was named for David Dunkel, who was the former paleontologist, and it means bone of Dunkel. So Dunkel being the name, and then osteus meaning bone. So Dunkleosteus is the most famous fossil fish. Oh, hey! Oh, look at you! Hi, buddy. Here's Dunkleosteus. Lee just gave me this, our toy of Dunkleosteus that's actually from our friend Carrie Woodruff. Brought this to us from Japan. This is a really cool model.
Cool.
It's like he's like squishy. He's very cute. So we have all these Dunkleosteus things in our home now. But there's Dunkleosteus, there's Gorgon ichthyes, which is a kind of serrated jawed arthrodire, and then my favorite, which is Titan ichthyes, and that is a big filter feeding animal, kind of whale shark-esque as an arthrodire fish. So we've got all sorts of critters.
Yeah, as you were mentioning, we actually have, like, CMNH had
there are some early coelacanths.
Oh, coelacanths.
Yeah.
Hey, Lee, what do you know about coelacanths? I don't know anything about coelacanths. Yeah. I'm just calling Lee over because I haven't heard about the coelacanths, if we have any. Do we have coelacanths from the shale?
Yeah.
Oh. What do you know about them?
Oh, not too much, actually. I'd have to look into them. We have one coelacanth that I think was collected with the Interstate 71 project. And for anyone not familiar with that, the Interstate 71 project was a construction, it was a road construction project back in the late 1960s, from 1965 to 1968. And it basically connected all the way through West Cleveland to I-90 in the city center. And the director of the Cleveland Museum at that time managed to secure a grant of about, what would amount to today to about $1 million to do, three seasons of field work.
So they uplifted a bunch of shale that is now in the museum, and a lot of that material has not been prepared and is still waiting to see what those fossils are in there. So
we're in the 50th anniversary of the project, basically, and we still have, it seems like, 50 years of prep work to do at the current rate. So
and there are
Are there any ghost sharks? Chimeras?
Say what?
Chimeras.
Oh, I don't know. Most of what we have are placoderms, and our arthrodire placoderms, actually. And then we have...
There's little arthrodires, too.
Yeah, but less frequently we have the sharks, and then the... Kentuckia, so the...
Oh, little fish.
Yeah, the little bony fish, the paleoniscoids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what about conodonts?
Yes!
Oh, actually, yeah, that's one of the few invertebrate fossils that we seem to have
cool.
found more regularly than others. And we find them while we're prepping placoderm bones.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I was working on a Dunkleosteus lower jaw, and right around the chin region, as I was working with the microscope and the air abrasive, I came down upon a toothy little chomping plate from a conodont. So sometimes it looks like they may have been feeding on the animals before they sank to the bottom. I don't know if the sort of benthal area of the Cleveland Sea would have been able to support anything alive for very long.
Yeah, so you can start to get a feel for what the environment was like. Those things are crazy looking too. Like, do yourself a favor and Google, is it CONODONT? Conodont.
Find a
They're
gif
like a
of
cross
jaw
between an arrow worm and a lamprey.
Yes.
It's just like it's an alien.
They have crazy looking jaws.
Borderline almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. You're like, that shouldn't be a worm. It's got teeth. Is it
It's
a
got a
vertebrate?
notochord too, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Do some research and check them out. They're crazy looking.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Lee.
That's really...
Thank you.
I'll say, going back to the cast of the Dunkleosteus, like as you said, we have one at the Denver Museum, and one of the volunteer positions I used to do was I was an exhibit guide for our paleontology exhibit, Prehistoric Journey, and one thing I always loved telling guests about to kind of, add to the cool factor of Dunkleosteus about its teeth. I mean, everyone here knows, at least in this group knows, but in case anyone doesn't know, like with Dunkleosteus, that its teeth aren't actual teeth, but just straight up bone growths, like serrated bone growths coming out of the skull. And
it's literally like I'm showing them my Dunkleosteus model here. It looks like when you search Dunkleosteus and look at the skull, it's not like you have a jaw with set teeth that can fall out. It's like your jaw is also your tooth surface. So it looks like a murder fish.
Yeah, and the reactions I get from telling that are just like, people are like, wow, this is... I've even gotten that exact phrase before, murder fish, before, and...
Here's the cool thing, Dylan. So Lee and I sort of had our minds blown because when we started bringing Dunkleosteus to the internet, because there had been some people talking about Dunkleosteus, but we really started putting fossils up there and talking about it and doing some SciComm on it, and we actually learned something that blew my mind, and I want to share it with you guys because I love sharing stuff. So there was an Australian researcher who actually said and corrected us on Twitter and said, hey, actually, those are teeth. And we went, do you have a reference? What publication? What's going on? And so what is done now, so with science progressing and all this sort of stuff and new technology, so when you take Dunkleosteus's jaw and you do some histology by slicing it open and looking at a really thin slice of the bone, is that it's actually not the same bone that's made of the rest of the skull. It's actually toothy material. So
really,
even though they're not rooted teeth, they still have some sort of is it dentine? They still have some sort of some tooth material on the inside. So what's really interesting is to look up kind of what came first, the teeth or the jaws. Did teeth come from the bone, or did teeth come from, where did teeth come from? It sounds like such a 5-year-old question.
That's really interesting.
Right?
I didn't know about that, and I guess it... Yeah.
But what's really cool is like some of those like questions that are big science questions are things that sound like a 5-year-old would ask.
I heard somebody tell me once that, I was told once that there's really no such thing as a bad question in science.
Yeah. And there's really not a dumb question either. I mean, unless you're really trying.
Yeah, unless you're really trying to be a dunderhead.
About that you said for me. That's really interesting. I guess, sometimes asking those really, like, simple questions are neat,
Yep.
to really understand some subjects. Things like that can really flip already existing ideas on their head.
Yeah.
And I always think that's interesting. Kind of what we've been talking about, the changing progression of science.
Absolutely.
Always being being able to be changed with any new evidence that's presented.
Yep.
Indeed. All right, Sam, you're up next with your second question.
Is there any evidence that some marine reptiles filter fed?
What is that, oh god, what was that new animal that came out that looked like it had a zipper face, but then it was corrected? You know what I'm talking about?
Atopodentatus?
Yes, that one. I am not a marine reptile person, but I know that a lot of animals do a lot of weird things. That is not a good answer, but yeah, I personally do not know if marine reptiles were filter feeders, but in the Devonian, we had filter feeders. Pterosaurs had filter feeders. Dinosaurs, right, have filter feeders. So there's like so many different groups of animals where it's evolved. And I think there is a marine reptile, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe plesiosaurs. Certain kinds of plesiosaurs were filter feeders, but I can't think of which ones.
I know too.
I love reptiles.
Yep, there are the two of the largest ichthyosaur species, I believe, were actually filter feeders. Those being the geniuses of Shaunosaurus and Shastasaurus.
Shauna Shasta.
Yeah, the one. So my profile picture that I have up on it's on my Facebook page. My like banner picture is so in Calgary. There's like the biggest ichthyosaur that was ever found up there, and I'm laying down next to it, and I'm like the size of its like. I am so small next to this thing. It looks like a giant whale that's been like stretched out on the museum floor. But yeah, those animals were filter feeders. So I guess I do know a filter feeding animal.
Kind of like the Mesozoic equivalent of a whale shark or a basking shark, it sounds
Yes. Like. And what's really amazing is that when you start learning about life on Earth, you see how almost like how history just repeats itself all the time. Like, you're like, come on, evolution, can't you get a little more creative?
Yeah,
like,
I know,
you got
right?
feeders, you've got predators, you've got herbivores and omnivores and all the same things. And, like, all the extinctions you've got, in mammals and reptiles, and, history just repeats itself.
How about garbage eaters? Try to produce life forms that eat garbage. That could really help with some of our problems.
Well, if you count possums.
Yes, yeah, possums, vultures.
I got really excited I think it was a couple years ago, when I heard that there's a bacteria that breaks down plastic.
I think I heard of that somewhere, actually.
I was like, oh, sweet, finally something evolved that we can utilize.
Yeah.
And some other filter feeding reptiles that Scott mentioned up were Mortonaria and the crocodile Stomatosuchus.
Awesome. Is there like
Greg, I wanted to see if it was all right.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'll let you finish, because I was gonna move on to another subject, but I'll let you finish what your thoughts were.
I was just gonna say, is there like a filter feeding like page somewhere that lists all of the filter feeding animals?
Not that I'm aware of.
I will have to look into this.
This is the great thing about the internet, is you can make anything happen that you would like. So
Yes.
I feel like there might be a Wikipedia page, but maybe not.
Well, thank you for your answer.
Greg, Greg, if it was all right with you, I wanted to open the questions from the list we have, kind of move on to a subject I wanted to really talk about, if that was all right.
All right, what's the subject?
So one of the things, actually, that I'm absolutely interested in what you do, and I think you're already aware of it, is your advocacy for women in paleontology and in STEM in general. And I find that incredibly interesting, and I'm really supportive of that. And I wanted to just pull one of the questions along with some of my personal questions about that. And I guess the question we have here is, what were some of the challenges you faced early on in your career as a woman of science in a profession that's very largely dominated by men? So,
yeah. Oh man. So the reason that I got really passionate about this, women in paleontology in the first place, is because of the Burpee Museum doing the PaleoFest that was Women in Paleontology. And I think for everyone who was there, and even people who weren't there, it really did spark a cohesiveness, between everyone, and people who did feel alone and isolated in sort of a male-dominated field was really nice, because then we could find a common forum to chat on. We started a Facebook group. We started the Women in Paleo group. Ree Levine, me, and like Rebecca Hunt Foster, and all of these amazing people, got on there and started talking and opening up this dialogue of, what have you experienced? What have you faced? What challenges do you have? People were kind of, I don't know, like less hesitant to approach these subjects now that you had some like camaraderie.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
so, it was just a really cool, like, that Paleo Fest changed my life. And like Scott Williams is such an amazing person for even
I love that. He's fantastic.
Yes. Don't tell him that, though. It'll go to his head.
Don't worry, I've already done that.
But I'm really sad I'm missing it this year right now, because it's happening, and I've been following everyone's tweets and the hashtag, and but yeah, I mean, really, the Women in Paleo fest was amazing, and it really made me think about what I've experienced and what I haven't experienced, and really empathizing with people that have had really horrible experiences, because personally, I've been really lucky.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Andy Farkey, like I said, is the greatest human, and I could never tell that, it never mattered to him, what sex I was. He just thought I was the greatest person too, and I was totally capable, and my husband, of course, meeting me and being really supportive, it really helps to have supportive people in your life that want to cheer you on, and, no matter what you're interested in. But, I haven't really had any terrible experiences. It's kind of the little things that people don't think about that they say to you. It's not like the big, oh, I experienced harassment, or I was denied something major in my field because I was a woman. It's the little things that I've brought to Lee's attention too, since we've been married.
Yeah.
And it's little things like the way that you say something to someone. Would you say this the same way to a woman as you would to a man? Would you give her, the tool in the field, or would you give it to him first? Would you want her to, it's equal opportunity, in every sense. So absolutely, yeah.
Well, my thoughts is that it doesn't matter what's down there. What matters is what's up here. To me, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, just as long as you have a good brain.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the way you treat people too, right? So, it's just the little things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those little things can kind of, grow inside of you. I can't really say I understand, well, in a way I can't really understand it because, I'm part of the, I guess, majority, but I understand at least little things and ideas that don't seem major on the surface can definitely affect your confidence and really bring you down, a way you wouldn't think of on the surface, but eventually those things can really start to bother you and boil in yourself. And I understand that. And I think I like to have the same mentality that Andy does, is that whenever, looking at someone for anything, I don't really care if, they're a man or a woman, if they're black, Asian, it honestly never really phases through me. The only thing I really pay attention to is, like you were saying, what Andy saw in you is, is this person capable? Is he or she responsible? Are they,
Are you interested? Can you do the job? Do you have good intentions? Are you a good human?
Yeah, exactly. And I think those are really the only things you need to point out.
Well, and for me, I'm really interested in, at the museum, we're having this whole Celebrating Women in Science series, which I have had the honor of creating programming for. Yeah, that's what's really fun about my job as adult programs coordinator at the Cleveland Museum is, I get to create programs that I want to see and that I want people to come to. And part of that has been Celebrating Women in Science. Absolutely. And, I'm actually in a video that is in our museum's gallery. And so sometimes I'll walk by and a little girl will run up to me and say, "You're in the video. I just saw you in the video." And, she gets to see someone that doesn't look like, a dude, but looks more like her, and that someone that she can relate to and that is in science, that has done research, that, is working in a museum, that can do all these things. So
absolutely. Really I always love, that. And I think, I'm sure you feel this, but I can imagine you feeling incredibly accomplished, feeling you've done something when you have someone like a little girl seeing what you're doing or what other women in paleo or science are doing and saying, wow, I can really do that, because I understand a lot of women, a lot of them don't even try to go into STEM because they feel that they don't belong in this field because this is just a man's job, or I guess that's a simplification of the thought process. But basically, I don't know if I'm right for this field, and I feel what you guys do in showing that it doesn't matter, being a girl or anyone else, you can do it as long as you have the passion and the dedication and skills to do it. You can go anywhere, and I just love hearing stories about you guys just inspiring other girls and everything to really come through, because honestly, through my experience with school and life in general, I like to have the thought, I kind of think in a lot of ways women are a lot more intelligent than men. And having
I'm actually inclined to agree with that
way. My attention to detail is probably a lot better than a lot of guys. I mean, I don't know. I can notice things a lot. My patience is also really great. I don't know. Everyone has their strengths. There's a lot of guys too who are really great and have attention to detail. But I can just say when Lee and I are out in the field, his skills are way different than mine, and we complement each other because where he is, looking to dig a new hole, to really excavate and look into something. Talking about trilobites, we went on a trilobite excavation in California, and he was like, I'm going to get down to where they are, down in the ground, coming out of the ground, instead of on the surface. And I went around and I was picking up all of the trilobites on the surface, and I was like, oh, look at this one, look at this one, look at this one. And he's so annoyed with me because I'm finding all of these trilobites on the surface and he's looking for them down below. But, it's those different skills that, women are good at sometimes really different things than guys. But kind of going back to the equal opportunity thing, you know, we do have a really long way to go, and especially in academia where it's still really, really tough. And so, you know, to anybody listening, I encourage you to, you know, think about the things that you say and the way that you act around women. And sometimes what you think is normal might just get someone's confidence down a little bit at a time, and it eats away at you, you know. So it really, you know, there are a lot of really wonderful guys that I have met, and my husband is one of them, and I've worked with, you know, people like Andy Farkey and Don Lofgren and all of these people who have really supported me over the years. So I fortunately have been very lucky.
Yeah, you know, I definitely agree with that, and my thought process is because, like, you know, women have a lot more, you know, tend to, you know, utilize skills that a lot of men don't really utilize as well, or really can't, I guess. And I feel like when they get, you know, pushed away, they mentally push them away from the field they're interested in because of this bias, you know, this social bias. I feel like it's really doing a lot of harm to academia and, you know, just science in general, because like you said, you know, like with you and Lee, you guys complement each other with your different skills. But if, you know, it's kind of a loss if, you know, there aren't any women who can complement, you know, men and just trying to add something to it and really, you know, focus on something that maybe should be more focused on, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's what we need, is we need more guys that recognize that and are aware of that and want to be allies for women. Yeah,
and I think, you know, with me following you and other, you know, female paleontologists in this advocacy, you know, Brittany Stoneberg, Tara.
Rebecca,
you know,
Ashley Moore.
Know, I've never met her, but just by seeing her, you know, I kind of see the same thing with you. It's this intense passion for education and really pushing these ideas to the general public and kind of, you know, changing the minds of other people, especially, you know, other younger women and everything. I think it's amazing. And then, like, you know, I already talked about how amazing Tara is. Then I know Rebecca is incredibly amazing as well with this advocacy and everything. So I always try to support whatever you guys do, retweeting it, commenting, and, you know, whatever. You know, I try to be one of those men who really support and you know, you guys, for the reasons I said.
Well, thanks, Dylan.
Go ahead.
That's awesome.
Of course, yeah.
You go back to the founding of paleontology, you got a giant figure in Mary Anning.
Yep. Absolutely. And you know what's really sad is that, like, not a lot is known about her, and that one picture of her may not even really look like her. Like, no one really has a photograph, and that's really crazy.
Yeah.
So she's, like, so well known, but also such an enigma.
She died very young, too. I think she was maybe 50.
Yeah, she had breast cancer.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of which, I actually used to be a member of the Hub pages, and I wrote a pretty good and pretty informative article on Mary Anning. It got quite a bit of praise from a lot of female readers on the Hub pages. It doesn't exist anymore. I gave up writing on Hub pages, so unfortunately the article doesn't exist anymore now.
You know, actually, one of the it's kind of funny. I wanted to show something off. One of the things I've done, there's this Lego does these, like, Lego idea sets where people submit ideas for Lego sets to be made and produced, and one of them that just recently was released is this Women in Science or Women in NASA set, and I've actually got it here. You got Margaret Hamilton with a little library, her own little minifigure. You've got, let's see, you've got
Mae Jemison.
Oh crap! Sally Ride just dropped off, but you got Mae Jemison right here.
Dang it, Dylan! I thought you wanted to support women in science. Now you're dropping them.
Happens sometimes, but then we've got Nancy Roman here with a little satellite, and
yeah.
The reason I bought this is
I've got these awesome. I'll see if I can get them real quick. There are these glasses that I got from Haley O'Brien. I just put these back here. These are, so I have a Heroes of Science pint glass. This is Ada Lovelace. It's it's the cardboard box. And then I have Rosalind Franklin. So yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So when I gave a talk down at Haley's University in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, she gave me those as my thank you.
Oh,
that was awesome.
Cool.
And I'll have you know, she filled it with Hansen beer from my favorite band, Hansen.
Cool.
Wow.
So, in case anyone's wondering, Hansen is my favorite band, and they also make beer now, and their beer is called Hops.
Oh, wow. The band that did that Bob song?
That's right.
Oh, golly.
Right.
That's cool. I guess I can't really appreciate things like that since I'm not at the right age, but I mean,
yes.
I have some appreciation for it, not really saying anything else, but but yeah, I bought this set really, to support the design. I bought this set to really support those designers who had the same goals as you guys, essentially trying to advocate for women in science, really highlighting these important women figures who contributed many important things with astronomy and everything, and I just want, the reason I bought it was just really show whatever support I could for the project and really add to the advocation of having more women in STEM and having them feel welcomed in this environment, especially, talking about how some of the most famous, their names are kind of eluding me, but I know some of them have been kind of ripped of recognition with some science projects. I can't really remember which examples, but I know there's been women scientists who contributed much to really important research topics. But then, when those topics get rewarded, they get completely cut, and the men running the project, even some that haven't really done as much, if at all, compared to those female scientists, it's a really big dishonor to them.
Yep, like Rosalind Franklin. But yeah, and that said too, I'm I don't just stay in the field of paleontology. My online, on Twitter, on Instagram, I am always following new women biologists, new women astronomers, women who are marine biologists. I have friends who are across all fields, and I definitely try to reach out, and I don't box myself in. So I think it's really important to do, especially because life on Earth is connected, and you don't know when paleontology is going to connect with another field. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Some of the coolest collaborations can come from talking to other people.
Yeah, and I remember seeing, because I definitely know about that with your Us of Science movement you did, kind of following the whole revoke of funding for different projects and stuff. And I remember, I can't remember, did you start that or did you kind of add to that hashtag? I can't remember.
So the real story of US of Science was, it was Inauguration Day, and this was a year or so ago. Yeah. And I was sitting there, and I was really, really upset because I knew it hadn't happened yet, but I knew that things like, funding all across different science projects maths and climate science and biology NSF was going to be cut, and going to be cut pretty hard. And it hadn't happened yet. But I knew that if I was feeling this way, then several other people online were also feeling this way, especially people who are way more involved in research and PhD academics and things like that who are actively trying to seek research funds all the time. Yeah. And so I was really frustrated, and I was like, okay, whenever something bad happens, I always try to turn it into something positive. And I hate when, Facebook gets flooded with really negative stuff. I try to look at it from a different angle and try to spread positivity. And so what I did was I reached out to Twitter, and it's something everyone should do. Everyone should communicate on Twitter. I'm a very strong advocate of Twitter, but I reached out and I said, I'm really looking to find positivity today, and I want to spread, as much of the fact that science is happening, it's not going away, we are here, we are scientists, and I wanted people to talk about their science and what they were doing. And so I was trying to grasp at something, and I'm trying to think of a hashtag, and so Jacqueline Gill, who's a paleoclimatologist, actually reached back, and she said, okay, yeah, sounds good. What should we do? And so we shot back a couple ideas, and hashtag US of Science came up instead of US of A, US of Science. And so that was a way for scientists to say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I study this, this is why this is important. And so it was important for scientists to not feel despair and to not feel upset that day, but to be strong and to say, hey, we're here, we're not going away, this is why science is important.
Yeah, so I thought it was completely fantastic, and I remember when you started this, and then I saw just the immense support in the.
It was awesome.
I can't even count the amount of tweets I saw, but I knew there were so many of them, and I thought it was such an amazing.
Because that day it was we were number 2 trending on the entire of Twitter.
Yeah, I remember seeing that too, and I thought it was just amazing. And I actually I was kind of I wanted to take part in it, but I was really hesitant to, because first off, I'm not an actual scientist myself, and especially I didn't want to take any credit for anything that actual scientists have done. So I kind of made my own post talking about not necessarily things I've done or researched, but just kind of my contributions to institutions like the Denver Museum and my assistance there too. I kind of wanted to just show what everyone else was showing. Yeah, and show science, as you perfectly said. We're going to be continuing on. Science doesn't stop change. You can't stop it. Don't try to stop it. But with the funding and stuff, I wanted to really support that, and I thought it was an amazing that you guys did, and I think it was obviously a success as well. And I think just the use of social media, these kinds of things, really goes a long way. And I think it was amazing. And that's one of the things I love about what you do, is just this advocacy using social media and educating people and changing people's opinions on things and having them look towards the common goal that will help support stuff. So I appreciate it and I respect it a lot.
I love that too. I'm so thankful that that was seen and heard, and that people got their voices out, and that it was an uplifting experience for everybody that could see that. And so it was really great to have all of that hope in the midst of something that everyone was really sad about. And I mean, it's I can't speak for everyone, but the majority of scientists, right, do not like Donald Trump. It is just a fact, because they're he's cutting all of science. It's just not okay. And so, you know, I think I didn't get any backlash from scientists that day. I think everyone was pretty much on board, unless they were staying pretty quiet. But,
I can't,
but you know,
anyone would go against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we don't get political very often on the show, but since this is a pretty important matter, I will let it slide for this particular episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I hope he did see that, you know, that there are scientists out there. Maybe that's why he got so mad about the national parks. I don't know.
That's one of the things that really irked me when I heard he had made that decision, was reducing the size of that national monument.
Well, and that's just it. If you care about science, if you care about, you know, national monuments and fossils and prehistory, it's like, you know, you can't help but get political with science. So, you know, and especially, you know, for those of us who care and are young, you know, it really helps to get out and vote. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, with me, I always try to avoid, you know, any like political discussions like on social media, because you know, it kind of goes back to the whole like rule of just small talk. That, you know, you really talk about religion, politics, because it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
But eventually, when it comes, especially the land park side for national parks, because I've had some sort of personal connection or involvement with both of those. You know, not so much bare ears, just because of some, I would say, conflictions between me and some of the people involved up there. But like with Grand Staircase, you know, that's like, as you know, Ashley, you know, a lot of what the museum has been researching and working on, you know, and it just, it hit me in a personal way. And, you know, when that came out, I couldn't help but voice my opinion about it, which is, like I said,
Oh yeah, I got contacted about an op-ed about Grand Staircase, and I just remembered I never replied to it. Yeah, gosh, I really should write them back, because I was going to do an op-ed about Grand Staircase. But yeah, there's plenty of time to talk about it. So
okay, if you want,
of course, and especially now.
I think we better get to our next question before we get off topic here.
Yeah, bring us back on track.
Okay, all right. I had question number 13. It's still kind of relevant to women of science here. Who were the women of science that inspired you as you were just getting started on your path towards, you know, paleontology?
They were actually Robert Bacher and Jack Horner, because I didn't have any women in the late 80s when I was growing up. I can't think of... Yeah, nope, it was Jack Horner. And
of all people.
Yeah, and so when I was growing up, it was like I rented a VHS, I think, from the library, and I went home and I watched it, and I didn't care if it was a man or a woman. Like, I didn't know the difference when I was like 6 years old. And so, you know, I think he had women on the dig with him, like, you know, whoever he was married to at the time, and other grad students and things. But, you know, it really wasn't until I want to say, like, PaleoFest really solidified it for me, like, coming back to PaleoFest. And, like, that was pretty late in my life, because I'd already had a career at the museum and in paleontology. And, like, one of the women I look up to the most is Mary Schweitzer. Like, Mary is amazing. She is just the coolest. She's the sweetest. She is the smartest. She's super neat to talk to, and she has the coolest research with, you know, dinosaur soft tissue and like all this cool stuff coming out of the bones, like dinosaur pregnancy tests, and like she's just the coolest lady. She and Christy Curry Rogers are actually like my top favorite women. Like, Christy Curry is just amazing. We had her here for Dinofest a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And she was just the coolest lady. And, like, you know, women that blow your minds. You don't think of women, or at least I didn't think of women that, like, were cool and you could hang out with, and they had, like, I don't know, they look, like, they don't look like paleontologists. I know that sounds weird, but, like, they wear makeup and they have cool clothes, and some of them have kids, and, like, I'm like, how do you do all the stuff that you do? Like, it's so incredible. And Christy Curry is one of those people that is just like amazing to me. Holly Woodward is one of my good friends. Holly is one of the coolest people in the world. Victoria Arbor, Ashley Morehart, Tara Lepore, Britt Stoneberg at the Western Center. And just, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So now I actually do look to a lot of these women and what they're doing, as opposed to, you know, when I was little, I didn't have any people that looked like me to look up to. I just liked what I liked, and I decided, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it because I like dinosaurs.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. And actually now I don't like dinosaurs as much as I like other stuff. So, big shocker.
Heretic.
There's paleontologists that specialize in Cenozoic era animals that don't even study dinosaurs, so there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Absolutely. Darren Croft is one of those people.
As is Dr. Xiaoming Wang at the LA Museum.
Yep. Yeah, Xiaoming.
Alright, this goes into question number 20 here about historical significance. My question is, who would you say are the most significant women of science for the last 20 or so years in terms of changing the public's perception of paleontology and science being primarily a field of work primarily done by men? And part 2 of this is, what are some significant scientific discoveries that have been made by women that haven't got that much coverage in the press?
Oh, man. God, some of those prominent women in science in the last 20 years? Oh, like all the ladies I just mentioned. And that's just paleontology. There are some really fantastic people on Twitter, namely, that I follow. Biologists that are spending every day tweeting what their research is. Like, I really admire the women that take the time to tell the public, like, every single day what they're up to, because it's not easy and it does take time. Like, social media, as much as I want to say it doesn't take time, like, I'm pretty much on my phone all day. And you guys probably know that because I'm so active online. It's like me and Tom Holtz.
Yeah, like, indeed.
If you want to know who's on their phone all day, it's me and Tom Holtz.
Yep.
That sounds like me and my computer. I'm on my computer a lot.
Yeah.
Same.
And, like, I'm always trying to share what women now in science are doing. And so if you want to follow me on Twitter and see those women, like, I have way too many to name. And I think a lot of the subjects that go... and the science that goes unnoticed are, and it sounds, so a couple things. So science that doesn't have good PR or good, like, social media presence, like, it's not really well advertised or covered by media. And that is really hard to do. Yeah. Like, you have to, when you publish, you have to, request that people pick it up. But also, like, this is my soapbox for saying that, like when you're little, what do you hear about? Save the tigers, save the panda bears, save the elephants. But, like, no one hears about the endangered spider. Like, you just don't. And so, like, science, paleontology is like that too. It's like no one hears about, like, I don't know, like, tiny Cenozoic mammals as much as they should. There's a lot of cool animals out there that don't get a lot of coverage. One of the people that I love that is doing a great job at this non-dinosaur paleontology is Sarah Bosnecker. She's at Tetrameryx, TTRAMERYX on Twitter. And Sarah and Bobby Bosnecker are doing really great things at the College of Charleston. They're really dear friends of ours. But she's doing really great things and making mammals, cool again.
Yeah.
And, and mammals don't get as much love as they should. And, there's a lot of different, like, discoveries that haven't gotten that much attention that really should have. I can't really think of one specific, though, that hasn't gotten as much attention as it should, because I probably haven't heard of it.
I know a scientist who's female and doesn't know a lot about dinosaurs, and her subject matter is pretty interesting. Coprolites, and that would be Karen Chin,
yes,
who I interviewed before. And this is no reflection on her whatsoever. Please don't take this wrong, Karen. But she didn't know all the different dinosaurs I was talking about per se, you know. But I'm sure she could talk poop out my ears.
No, Karen is amazing. I also had the privilege of meeting Karen and really talking with her at PaleoFest. But she was like one of the rock stars that I met at PaleoFest, and I was like, oh my god, it's Karen Chin. She studies poop, and she's the coolest.
Yeah, she actually is pretty well known. So that's maybe not the best example.
But no, that is funny because she's not a dinosaur expert. She's a poop expert.
Exactly.
But, I'm surprised, too, sometimes, because I'll go to a school on outreach, and a kid will ask me, like, a dinosaur name, and I'll go, which one?
Yeah.
Because there's some books that name, like, really obscure dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were kids, we knew all the names, but now, forget about it.
Yep.
Greg's doing a good job of that today, even though I don't even remember all these.
Yep, it pays to be well connected. Pays to be well connected indeed. Anyhow, I think I'll move on to my question number 18. This is about you specifically here. This is like Gabe Santos suggested. How have you gone about changing public perception about what scientists and educators could be to tear down the metaphorical ivory tower, so to speak?
Well, Gabe specifically at SVP last year got together with a bunch of other people and did like this amazing diversity workshop at SVP, and they did this amazing photo campaign where they took pictures of paleontologists and people that work in paleontology that aren't white. Like, there are so many people that are not white. I am white. I am the whitest of the white. Like,
even your hair.
I was sad that I couldn't, I take part in that campaign. I support it so much, but I was like, I'm a woman, but, I did have privilege growing up, and it was nice to, have the opportunities that I did, probably because of my skin color. I, by heritage, am Italian and German and English. Like, I am all the white things. But, Gabe is incredible. Gabe is really changing the game because he is Filipino, and he is featuring all of these diverse people, and making it known that there are people that that have different backgrounds and different stories than your typical old white paleontology guy. And also the other cool thing is the Bearded Lady Project. If you don't know the Bearded Lady Project, we have had the privilege, of hosting it for the past few months here in Cleveland, and we were actually the second institution to have the Bearded Lady Project. University of Wyoming had it first, and then they brought it to Cleveland, and we fought really hard for that exhibit because Dr. Denise Sue, who is our paleobotanist, is part of that exhibition. And so Denise and I got together and we said, okay, we're going to do a bunch of programming around it. We really want to feature this hard and push it and have discussions around it and have panels about it and feature these people. And so in the exhibit, you'll see people who are all shapes and colors and sizes and have different backgrounds and different specialties. And every time I go by and I read a new biography about someone, I am constantly amazed. So if you can see the documentary, see it. The photographs, I think, a lot of them are on their website. But that really was helping people at the museum actually see that women are in paleontology, and people now know that women are sporting beards in the name of paleontology. And it is kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, the portraits look super serious, but when you hear them talking, Ellen Curnow, when you hear her talking about it, it actually was kind of a tongue-in-cheek, like, yeah, let's put on beards and see how people react to this project. Yeah.
It's quite creative, I have to do admit.
Definitely got people thinking.
Yeah. ZZ Top paleontologist.
I remember seeing at the GSA symposium in Denver in 2016, they had a little display of the Bearded Lady project, and I kind of heard about it before then, and I didn't know too much about it besides just the overall goal, and I remember the portraits they had, and I thought it was, like you said, that kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of idea, but I think it's a really funny idea, but also a really I guess idea-breaking idea, as you were describing the women in paleontology, their involvement and that they're actually here, and it's not just the stereotype of the old white men in lab coats thing that's generally thought of when thinking of science and stuff. But I think it's a really great project, and I was glad I was able to see some of it while I was at the symposium.
Yeah, and as much as I love Bill Nye, I'm very happy we are getting away from that look.
Yeah,
I loved Bill Nye when I was.
I know.
I love Bill Nye's Science Guy. I mean, I couldn't get that theme song unstuck out of my head when I first watched it.
I've got it now. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Yeah, he was awesome, and I actually have a lot of respect for Bill Nye, especially his advocacy for science in an age where science is being increasingly attacked.
Yep.
So I have to give him some major props for that. And if we're ready to start talking about everybody's favorite little dinosaur movie, Jurassic Park, I'm ready to cover my little question about that.
Yay!
Okay, yep. How has the movie Jurassic Park and the Jurassic Park series as a whole shaped your career as an educator, and how has it inspired you with educational outreach?
Wow. The cool thing about Jurassic Park is that kids that are 7 years old today still know the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You can complain as much as you want about Jurassic Park, about anything about it, but the fact that kids still know what Jurassic Park is today is my favorite thing, because I grew up at 9 years old knowing it, and kids now unfortunately know Jurassic World, which I will talk badly about.
Yeah.
But at least it's there, and they can go back and reference the first one. Their parents can show it to them, and they know the movies. I ask kids on every program that I do, who's seen Jurassic Park? Who knows Jurassic World? Guess what? The Jurassic was a time period. Who knew that? And, because I'm teaching them, like, the time periods, Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. And, I'm like, it's not just a movie, it's a time period. And guess what? T-Rex isn't actually the star. It should have been Allosaurus.
And half the dinosaurs in the first film are Cretaceous period to begin with.
Exactly, yeah. And so I try to have them walk away with that. But what I will say is Jurassic Park has hugely shaped my career and my life in general. I grew up at 9 years old watching Jurassic Park, and it was the coolest movie. And I remember leaving the theater at 9 years old and thinking, and it was July, I remember when it came out. It was really hot that day, and I came out of the theater, and I just had that moment where you're like, my entire life has just changed. It was 9 years of my life. I'd never seen anything like that. And it shook my very being. I went to school, I played, I pretended I was a velociraptor on the playground, a bunch of boys. Run around pretending to be dinosaurs, and I didn't care that I was playing
so
with toys.
Awesome.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Of course. And I had the toys, and I had the raptor and the Dilophosaurus that made noise, and the battle damage,
I probably had all the toys you're listing off here, Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're worth money now. You should have kept them.
The T-Rex that stomps and roars. We all still have that stuff. Yes, that one.
Hang on. I still got the battle damage. See?
Yeah. T-Rex baby with battle damage.
Well, I sold mine off, unfortunately.
Yeah, I still got mine. I still got mine.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are collector's items now because they're technically vintage. That's super crazy.
Right.
And they're still quality figures. Some of the newer ones I've seen coming out haven't exactly borne well with, collectors or quality alone.
Yeah. But so I was that, tomboy kind of girl that played with the boys on the playground, and then, as I grew up, I idolized Jack Horner, and really, like, Jurassic Park really shaped the way that I thought about dinosaurs. And the fact that they, moved the way they did, and they, Jurassic Park with the Gallimimus running over the log, and they were so fast, and they were so cool looking, and T-Rex was like the most beautiful animal I'd ever seen. And so it really did, like, inspire me to pursue paleontology. And then when I met and, started to get to know Lee, we actually met on an online dating site. So for all you guys who are online dating sites, it does work. But so we met on an online dating site, and then when, like, long story short, when we were planning our wedding, it was like, all right, we both don't really want, like, the traditional wedding, and we both were obsessed with Jurassic Park, so we were like, well, we have to have a Jurassic Park wedding. Like, that's just what we have to do. So, I don't know if you've seen our engagement video?
I have.
Okay, so, like...
You saw about the turkey and that whole scene?
Yeah, so Lee took me to the filming site where they filmed the dig scene. It's actually in California. And he set up the camera and said we were going to the actual dig site thing, and the dig site where they shot Jurassic Park. He set up the camera and made me reenact the 6-foot turkey scene, like, with him in the desert. And I was like, that's cool, because we would just probably do that. Like, I didn't think anything was up. And he recited Alan Grant's entire monologue, and then proposed to me with the claw of Velociraptor with the ring on the end of it.
Very windy day.
It was a super windy day, so we had to dub the whole thing. But, we played, like, music over it or something. But that was, like, such an incredible day. And then we decided to have the Jurassic Park wedding. And so we had, like, we had centerpieces that we had made from stuff in our house, that each one, on each table, represented a different scene from the movie. So we had, like, the Welcome to Jurassic Park scene with the Brachiosaur and the Jeep and the gates. And then we had the T-Rex sort of crashing through the wire scene, like getting out of the paddock. And so we had, like, a piece of wire, a T-Rex claw, and a broken tail light on another table.
With goat cheese.
Yeah.
Goat cheese.
And then we had a bloody arm on our gift table, like, for the like Mr. Arnold. The bloody arm that was actually holding our pen for, like, the guest book.
Oh God, you killed Samuel Jackson.
Yep. And then my favorite thing about our wedding is that we had our very dear friend Nate Carroll bring in his full-size As Darkid puppet, and it was my ring bearer. So we had a pterosaur as a ring bearer.
Cool.
It was a 6 foot, like a 6 foot tall pterosaur, like Quetzalcoatlus style.
Nice.
If I ever had a wedding like that, I think my wedding vow would be, if life finds a way. That would be my wedding vow.
Yeah, mine too.
Absolutely. Oh. Absolutely. Well, we actually recited out of, so we had Andy Farkey be he was our...
your pastor or whatever.
Yeah.
Minister.
He married us, and then he had a gilded copy of Origin of Species. And we actually had, like, we'd written our own vows, and so we had put, like, Carl Sagan quotes in it. It was totally, like, it was everything. It was everything I ever wanted.
That sounds perfect.
It was. It was a perfect day, and we got married at the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History.
Oh, nice.
And so we got married in the presence of, like, a beautiful forest, but also a museum that has, like, pygmy mammoths and, giant squid and all sorts of neat stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Lee's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. Good.
Well, hey, if I ever do a wedding, if I ever marry a paleo enthusiast woman as well, I'll have to take cues from your wedding. Just know I won't try to copy it off. I'll use it as an inspiration, not copying it, as inspiration.
Hey, you do you, man. That's, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You do you.
Yep.
Well, I got this one idea. If I ever get married, I've thought about maybe doing a King Kong themed wedding where I'm dressed up as Kong and my wife to be dresses up as Andero.
People have done it all, right? Like people have done like Star Wars and Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure that's been done.
I think there may have been some Godzilla weddings possibly too.
You should look it up. I bet it exists.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Be in Japan or here in the West.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna dress up as King Kong after you guys walk down the wedding aisle after you kiss, you better carry her around like King Kong would down the wedding aisle.
Just like one arm.
Yep.
Okay, all right. I think I've got some. Questions about. If we're ready to move on back to some more questions here, I've got some questions about Cleveland itself here.
Okay.
Okay. So, simple one here is what do you enjoy the most about your job at the museum?
Well, so at the museum, I'm adult programs coordinator, and it is a really fun job because, like I said in LA, I was a tour guide at the tar pits. I was doing animal presentations, talking to the public, working with curators and things like that. But here at this museum, it is so incredible. It is like in the mornings, I'm doing a lot of work with school groups. I'm still teaching actively, K through like 8 in the mornings. I just picked up outreach, so I'm doing outreach out at schools, taking programs to schools, and then I get to plan adult programs, like I was talking about with like the Women in Science series. So I get to bring in speakers if I can. I get to do classes and programs with our curators. So like with Dr. Michael Ryan, who's our paleontology curator, we're going to do some fossil fish classes about, you can come and learn about the fossil fish of Cleveland. I can do field trips. So I can actually take people out to the Cleveland Shale where the fish are found. And my really favorite program is called Real Science. And that's where we partner up with a movie theater and show movies like Jaws is coming up this next Wednesday. We're doing Starship Troopers. We did, Jurassic Park. And then we talk about it afterwards, with the curator of choice. So we talk about the real science, the not so real science, and we just have a really good time. So I get a lot of flexibility in my job, which is really fun. And Cleveland in general is just a really cool audience. There's a lot of young people. There's people who are interested in the museum. It's small enough where it doesn't feel, like Chicago, which is really enormous. It's much smaller feeling, so you get kind of an intimate crowd and you start to get to know people. But I'm also planning big events too, like the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, which we just had a month ago, and Birds, Beasts, Brats, and Beers, which is our wildlife fundraiser every summer that we have. Yeah, and you get to hang out with our animals and donate to help take care of them at the museum, because we actually have live animals at the museum that cannot survive on their own, so they have been rehabilitated and now they are education animals. Yeah. And I get to work with really cool animals like vultures and hawks and eagles and possums and skunks, and I have a very diverse job. I'm never doing the same thing on any day.
Do you have the pterosaur exhibit there yet?
Yes. Oh my God.
It just came from San Francisco where I saw it.
Oh my God, it's so good. Did you see it?
I did indeed.
It's such a good exhibit. So we're talking about the pterosaurs Flight in the Age of Dinosaurs exhibit from the American Museum of Natural History. It is the coolest exhibition that the AMNH has done, I want to say. And we've had like The Power of Poison, we've had Amazing Species, Like, it's incredible. And I'm obviously a huge pterosaur fan, and
Very good.
Oh my god.
Good stuff.
Like...
by the way, go ahead.
They provided so many real pterosaur specimens.
Yes.
Like, there are beautiful specimens.
It's got to be priceless, I know.
Oh my god.
By the way, Starship Troopers has a nude scene in it, so be ready.
Yes, of course there's one. There's actually a couple.
So did you ever wake up and say, I don't feel like going to work today, Ash? You ever say that?
No.
Good.
No. And you know what? I used to when I lived in LA because I was so tired.
Yeah.
But here in Cleveland, it's a little bit more chill.
Yeah. I've interviewed a lot of people with jobs in Hollywood and drawing dinosaurs and finding dinosaurs. And I tell them, if I ever find out you wake up saying, I don't feel like going to work, and I'd threaten them in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, Ash, if you ever do a film, do one of the series with Star Wars, you're going to be doing a huge dishonor to Scott if you don't have him come in and talk about it in some capacity.
To who?
Scott Williams.
Oh, that would be fun. Maybe we can coordinate that. Yeah, or like a superhero movie, right?
Oh, that would be fun.
Because I was when you because I was going to say, you know, Scott's one of my favorite paleontologists to talk to, is because not only do we like both love paleontology, but we're massive Star Wars fans. I mean, if you can see in my room, I've got a bunch of like posters there. I've got Lego sets there.
Are you on the Star Wars Facebook group?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
He invites me and always tells me to post on it so we can keep it active. And then I remember when, like I was saying earlier, when I went, you know, to collect that Triceratops skull from North Dakota, and I went to the Dino Shindig that was going on there. You know, Scott was there, and that was the first time we actually were meeting and stuff. And the funny thing is that when we first were talking, we didn't talk anything about paleo or anything. We were just straight up talking Star Wars lore, like comics, different movies, shows, and stuff. And we just had like an hour-and-a-half conversation just about that. We didn't even touch a single thing about paleo, and it's fun to have someone that like has the same big interest as you, but like is a big field.
Well, that's just the thing too. Like, people have different interests, you know, like outside of paleontology. I don't know why, but
there is another interest.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Paleontologists can be part of fandoms just like the average common Joe.
Yep.
I mean, Dr. Ken Carpenter, he's actually a big Godzilla enthusiast from what I understand.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, very cool, yeah.
I'm showing my Wonder Woman bracelet.
Yeah, Gil. No, what's her name? The actress?
Oh, Gal Gadot.
Gal, yeah. Very pretty.
Yep, she is my favorite.
Yeah, it's really.
Alright, okay, I think I'll let Sam field another question. He's been left wanting for a while.
Something that Dylan here was just talking about actually just gave me an idea for a new question I thought up. This is kind of a hypothetical or speculative question. Okay. If we ever do find evidence of life on other planets, like multicellular life, such as plants and animals, do you think paleontologists could ever be part of that? You know, digging up the remains of extinct aliens. Do you think the paleontologists could ever be a part of that at all?
I hope so, absolutely, because, you know, as soon as someone does find remains of life on another planet, like, who are they going to go to? Paleontologists, and then guess what? Some lucky person's going to be like the exopaleontologist, right? You get to be like the paleontologist who studies life on other planets, and like, how cool is that?
They are looking for prehistoric aliens.
Yeah, and like there's you know, planetary geologists. Like, why can't there be planetary paleontologists?
Yep.
Dylan was just talking about Star Wars, and suddenly the idea for that question kind of popped up into my head as Dylan was talking about that.
Fun thing that you guys probably already know, but probably not everybody does, is the bones on the other planet in Star Wars. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know. Of course.
The big vertebrae that they show on, is that Tatooine?
Yeah, Tatooine. Yeah. It's a crate dragon.
You know what they actually were?
Hatasaurus vertebra.
Yep.
Oh.
It was a sauropod.
Yeah, right.
I always love talking to that. I always love telling people that whenever I'm trying to make some sort of connection between the two, which is rare. This is pretty rare since they really don't have a correlation with each other besides that. But yeah, it's always a fun thing to think about.
Matt Weddle had something on SV POW about that.
But yeah, I've always thought that was rather interesting to think about, that if we ever do find evidence of life on other planets, could paleontology somehow get involved in that, in the exploration of life on other planets?
Yeah, I'm sure they would probably contact someone like GSA or SVP first, and then try to come up with some sort of committee.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be an entirely new field of science, investigating life that evolved under completely different conditions, different rules, and might not exactly follow the same rules as life on planet Earth, for example.
Hey, Greg, we're pushing 3 hours. Should we
hopefully somewhere there's dinosaurs out there, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, like Planet of Dinosaurs, that old stop-motion film.
Yeah.
Well, and the cool thing that I like to think of is whoever's getting our light, right, from 66 million years is seeing, 66 million years away. If there are aliens out there, they are seeing dinosaurs, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, Sam, you want to field one of your actual original questions here real quick?
Sure. What do you think diseases could have been like back in the Mesozoic? I would imagine they'd be quite different from what we know.
They would be the worst. They would be so bad. Oh my god. Like, diseases today are, also horrible. Like, don't get me wrong. And diseases have been evolving since life evolved, right? Co-evolved. And I've actually learned a lot more about this because our museum has a curator of human health and evolutionary medicine who studies stuff like that. But, man, talk about, the stuff that those animals must have experienced, right? If you have a giant sauropod or something and you have, some sort of intestinal parasite, no. Oh, that poor animal. Oh, God. And the parasite must have just been, I don't know, for an animal that big, probably pretty terrible. And, whales and elephants and things, also experience just as terrible stuff. But for some reason, when we think about it, it's more terrible for dinosaurs. I don't know why. But I think it's because we think back then there was higher diversity, right, of, scarier stuff on the planet and, bigger parasites and, I don't know. I mean, in reality, they probably aren't too different, but I think our brains just go in the, holy crap field.
Well, there was an illustration that a guy on DeviantArt did once. Maybe you've heard of him, Hodari Nundu. You ever heard of him? Mm-mm. Well, he did an illustration once of this Giganotosaurus suffering from a severe parasitic infection by this type of parasitic reptile that burrowed in to the Giganotosaurus's mouth after eating the flesh of a dead sauropod that was already infected with it.
Good Lord. Well, I'm sure everyone, since it is late at night, I'm going to give everyone nightmares right now, but if you look up the fish tongue parasite.
Oh, God.
It's a little isopod that takes over where the fish's tongue is.
No, I don't think I've heard of that, actually.
Oh, my God.
I've heard of some pretty creepy parasites, but I don't think I've heard of that one.
And, parasites have been found, right? In the fossil record. They're not,
They have been found, yes.
Yeah, worm burrows and ticks and things. There was a tick recently that had, was that monkey blood in it? It was some sort of primate tick, I believe that was, a Oligocene, I think, primate tick. But anyway, yeah. So there's been parasites that have been found, and I can't even imagine the kind of stuff they had that we don't even know about.
I think that's
it's really fun to think about.
I think it's best left not knowing. The modern parasites, they creep me out enough. I don't even want to think
actually,
what. But
I wonder if Karen Chin knows, because I bet a lot of that stuff was pooped out.
I would have to think so, yes.
If it's all right with you guys, I've got just 3 more questions left. Do you mind if I get these finished up real quick? Because as I said, I gotta go to bed early tonight. I got a big family get together.
All right, that's fine. Once you get, all right, Sam, that's okay. I'll let you finish up, Sam. Then I'll try to get what I have left wrapped up, and then we'll call it a night. And after that, if we have nothing else to talk about.
All right, yeah. So sorry about that. It's just, I got a big family get together that I got to go to tomorrow, so I kind of have to go to bed early tonight.
Sure thing. Works for me.
Dominating the conversation, so if anyone's to blame, it's probably me.
Oh.
All right.
We can always do part 2.
My next question is, what do you think the weather would have been like back during the Mesozoic?
Oh, pick an area.
Let's say the tropics, for example.
Well, so the big question. Well, the tropics, I don't know. But thinking about Cleveland, so here's an interesting question I will throw back at you. So we do not find Mesozoic fossils here in Cleveland. We know that dinosaurs and other animals during the Mesozoic lived in Cleveland, but we do not have fossil record of Mesozoic here. So what happens is you go from up here, you go to the Pleistocene, so you go Ice Age, 10,000 years, and then you drop down to, I don't know the upper limit of what we have here of Pleistocene stuff, but then you have this huge unconformity, and you get Pleistocene stuff right next to Devonian stuff, and there's nothing, so you go 360 million years, and then you go 12,000 years.
That's insane.
And so, we,
yeah,
in Ohio, when you go down south, you can get Permian stuff, but there's no real Mesozoic fossils that have been from here. And so my question is, what was Cleveland like during the Mesozoic? Because we don't know. There's no record of it.
That's interesting. I wonder what would cause such a huge unconformity in that area, because you would have normal, I guess you would have, a few million year time difference between unconformity.
You know what it was? I actually know what it is.
What is it?
It was the Appalachian orogeny, the mountain building event. So you get because we've got the Appalachians on our side, and so when you have all of that rising, the mountain building event, nothing was being deposited at the time in Cleveland. And then you also have the ice sheets coming through.
Yeah.
And we have these amazing glacial grooves on Kelly's Island, one of the islands out in Ohio, and they're huge, these huge gouges out of these rocks, and so you get these bulldozers coming down and scraping away.
I've been to Kelly's Island once before, so I know what you're talking about. I've seen them.
Yeah, they're super cool.
Yeah.
But you just imagine a bulldozer coming through and just destroying anything else that's been left there from the Mesozoic. So.
Yeah, that's insane. That makes sense when you put it in that way. See, this is kind of what I was talking about, learning more about geology. I've started learning more about these events, unconformities and stuff. And if I hadn't taken that class at this point, I wouldn't know what you're talking about. But
Yep.
Random throw it there.
Good question.
Thank you. My last 2 questions. Were there any kinds of fruits or vegetables during the Mesozoic? And if so, do you think dinosaurs would have fed on them?
Yes and yes. There were... So angiosperms, right, evolved along with dinosaurs. And probably what facilitated that was pollinators, because you had a lot of the flying insects and things evolving along with that.
Yeah.
But what I like to think about is, so fruits and things evolved along with angiosperms because fruit comes from flowering plants. And so you get all of these dinosaurs in the late Cretaceous kind of hanging out with flowers and probably munching on some fruit. I don't know if Karen, I'll have to look into some of the research, but I don't know if there's like seeds that have been, probably seeds that have been found in dinosaur poop from like figs and things. I think there's probably a lot of... Oh, hi. That was my cat, sorry. They're fighting.
That sounds very terrifying.
Bad kitty.
Terrifying.
My cat hates my kitten, like, so much.
Ooh.
It's terrible. So anyway, yeah, there were fruits and flowers, and I like to think about dinosaurs, like, sticking their nose in some flowers and, like, getting pollen on their face, and maybe they were pollinating flowers, too. That would be pretty funny to see, like, I don't know, like one of the little avian dinosaurs hanging out and, like, eating fruit off of a tree. That's why I love paleo art so much, is because you can make all that stuff happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I can totally see Mark Mitten or someone like that making a piece about that, since he always likes to make pieces, dinosaurs being just normal animals, kind of just doing these normal things.
Yep.
You know, you can totally see him doing something like that as you were describing it.
Yeah, Mark Whitten's one of my favorite people and paleo artists. So, sorry, what was the other part of that question?
Well, could you imagine sauropods picking fruits similar to apples off of trees?
I imagine, like, you know how deer come in your yard and they, like, eat all the fruit if there's any fruit in your yard? I just imagine, like, you know, a sauropod sticking its head through a giant tree.
Take an old tree.
I feel like if anyone would eat fruit, it would probably be a sauropod. You're right.
Yeah.
The other part of that question was, were there vegetables around at that time too, and did dinosaurs eat them if there were?
Vegetable is like a really strange term. So I don't know how you guys feel about this, but like we have a sign in our dinosaur hall that says the first American vegetarian, and it's like talking about Triceratops. And I don't like calling dinosaurs vegetarian because A, it's like a people term, and B, like, what is a vegetable? Like, vegetable is kind of like it's like a human construct, I feel like. Because vegetable matter can be like anything, right? It could be like branches but like the term vegetable only applies to like what you and I can eat. Because we can't eat leaves off of a tree. Like, very seldom can we just walk up to a tree and like eat a leaf off of it and be okay, like without having any stomach problems.
I actually tried that once when I was really little, and it tasted horrible.
Right? Yeah, and then plants have all these like crazy defenses, right? So like even if you can eat the fruit, like the leaves are probably toxic.
Yeah.
And so you think about like what constitutes a vegetable, and it's very few things. One of my favorite people that I used to work at the museum said, we are so limited as to what we can eat. Just think about next time you're walking around, think about if you could eat every single plant on your way from where you are to where your car is parked. Like, think about all of the different vegetable matter that you can't eat.
Yeah,
and
Lord Dern said that plants will defend themselves.
Exactly. They will defend themselves violently when necessary. And so my answer to that is dinosaurs ate plants, fruits, because more times fruits are, what we think of fruits are actually what some of the things we call vegetables. Like, so like a tomato, right? Like a tomato is a fruit.
Yeah.
So like the product of plants are fruits. Usually the vegetable part is part of the plant itself. Like lettuce or something is like, right? Like a vegetable, it's like the plant itself.
Right.
So I guess dinosaurs did eat vegetables if you count leaves as vegetables.
I guess the vegetable is a relative concept from species to species.
Yeah. Maybe dinosaurs called them something else. I don't know.
They probably didn't have a word for that.
See, now it's getting late and we're getting loopy.
No. Okay, Sam, I think we should just... Okay, Sam, I think we should get your last question out of the way.
All right. My final question is, did dinosaurs remember migratory routes, or did they just know them instinctively?
Ooh.
Good one.
I mean, I'm probably on the same page as you guys. Like, when you think about animals migrating, it's not something that we know that they actually think about. It's cues from the moon, it's cues from the seasons, it's cues from their herd, right, moving together. Like, if there's young animals, they would not know to migrate, think land before time. Therefore, their like, family is the one to move them and to guide them places. So migration is something that is instinctual for a lot of animals, but it is also cues from the environment. So monarch butterflies will stick around if they know that the food is good and the weather is still good. Like, they're not going to go to Mexico just because they've got what they need right there. So in some seasons, dinosaurs probably stuck around a little longer if the weather was all right, and then if the weather turns bad, that's when they start to move. So I think it's probably a little bit of both. You know, some animals probably were really hardwired to migrate, whereas others, it may have just been seasonal. So, yeah, because turtles, that's a weird thing. Like, I don't think we know what's going on with turtles yet. Like, that's such a insanely specific thing to, like, be hatched on an island and then to go back to the exact same island. Like, it's mind-blowing. There's so much we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for your answers.
Well, thank you for your questions.
You're very welcome.
I think this is a topic that I'll revisit with some other paleontologists that we have on the show that might be a little more knowledgeable on this.
Absolutely. Yep, especially when you get real specific animal groups like hadrosaurs, for like some of the migratory animals that probably were like moving in herds, you know, Jurassic Park reference.
Or even ceratopsians.
Oh, here's a good question. Did pterosaurs migrate?
I don't see why they wouldn't have migrated. There's evidence that some of them could have kept themselves aloft in the air for a long distance of time very efficiently.
Do you think some dinosaurs migrated by remembering certain landmarks? Yeah, because I'm not very good at directions, so I find my way around mostly by remembering things and remembering certain areas and landmarks. That's how I know where I am, because I'm not so
absolutely
good at directions.
Yeah, I'm the same way too. Like, and we're animals too. Like, we can't forget that. You know, we always take ourselves out of the picture usually when we're talking about an organism. But like, yeah, if we can do some of that stuff, there's a good chance that a lot of these animals can do the same thing. Like, I am really bad with maps, but I remember landmarks. So,
Yeah, some modern animals that use other ways of navigating, migrating, would be sea turtles, sharks, and birds. They actually have a little thing in their brains that allows them to detect the magnetic fields on the Earth, and it helps them to navigate.
Yep, pigeons.
And I bet pterosaurs probably had something quite similar.
Oh man, but we'll never know because we only have their bones.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Okay, ready to move on to my next question here about Cleveland. Question number 9. All right, this is about the future of the museum. What can we expect from the new and revamped exhibits at the Cleveland Museum once these renovations upgrades have been completed?
Well, so the vision for the museum, we're coming up on our 100th anniversary, is to renovate the dinosaur gallery and make it bigger and better than ever. Right now those plans are still being worked out. So the minute Lee and I moved here, he sat down with a bunch of people and we're talking about what people wanted to see in the galleries, what the researchers wanted to feature. And we are definitely like without question, no matter what happens, we're going to put more Dunkleosteus on display. And I'm real excited about that. So, expect more Dunkleosteus.
As if you didn't have enough of them already.
And there's only one skull on display and a model that's hanging in the air. That's it.
That's really all we know about what they look like. Those skulls.
We have babies. We have like little ones, and we have like big ones, and we have like teenage ones. Like we have all sorts of different ones. So, yeah, we're gonna throw a bunch more Dunkleosteus in there.
Any word on what new dinosaurs will be possibly exhibited in the new and improved dinosaur hall?
That'd be interesting to display out and show the public.
Yeah. No, I mean as far as dinosaurs, I think it's still. I mean, definitely ceratopsians, right? Because Michael Ryan is a ceratopsian expert. So hopefully we can get some of the ceratopsians that he has named and described. You know, Xenoceratops and Mercuriceratops, and you know, there's so many good ceratopsians that Michael has worked on. Yeah, so I'm hoping to feature more of what he's done. And you know, everyone's got the big showy stuff, but I always like to see like more about the environment. So I'm hoping we put more about you know, turtles and fish and birds and you know, some of the smaller fossils that really make the difference. Microfossils.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So Scott has a little joke here. Give out free donuts at the exhibit. Dunk and donuts.
Oh man, you're giving away my next program. I'm totally doing that.
Oh.
I've literally been thinking about doing that for maybe like a year and a half. So
do it.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, it seems you can add psychic ability to your list of many talents.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
pretty awesome. I just have to get Dunkin' Donuts to sponsor us.
Well, I prefer the little chocolate mini donuts. As long as you got those there, I'm good.
Yep, that's my favorite too.
Cool. All right, my next question is about Dinofest itself. Question number 16. Where did the idea for Dinofest come from? And are there some guests that you would like to see as speakers at future Dinofests at the museum?
You know, because I wasn't at the museum when I first started, I can't speak to exactly how it got started, but I think it started in the same time as the other institutions sort of doing a big fest about dinosaurs. And especially, you know, where you bring in researchers to have them talk. That's such a cool feature of the exhibit, or the event. We have so many people in mind, and unfortunately, you know, I can suggest all I want, but the final call is made by our curator. And so, you know, I think this next year, I think we already know that we're going to have Andy Farkey out, because we were supposed to have him last year, and he had to cancel last minute, and so I think we're definitely going to go for having Andy back this year. So you can come meet him.
That I figured if Dr. Farkey would make it up going next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but as far as, you know, people, I want to get Mike Habib out. You know, I want, we already had Ava Koppelhaus. God, there's so many people. We want John Scanella. We want so many people. We just had Victoria Arbor, which was amazing.
Yep, I was there for that talk.
Yep. And actually, Kerry Woodruff is coming this next week, and he's going to hang out with us and do a podcast for our museum about Haplocanthosaurus. Cool. And he's going to do some research, too, on Haplocanthosaurus. So we always have someone cool in.
Yeah. Any chance of getting Dr. Holtz to come to one of these Dinofests as a speaker?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, he's always welcome. We would love to have him. Absolutely. Just depends on if he's teaching or not. Usually Dinofest is like whenever someone's semester is, I think.
Well, he would be an amazing guest to have there for sure.
Absolutely.
So, Is there any is the criteria for speakers of Dinofest strictly just paleontologists, or can anybody who has written about dinosaurs and, like, say, the popular culture, for example, Britta, to come out as speakers? Because there's a lot of non-paleontology dinosaur speakers I could absolutely recommend that could talk about dinosaurs in movies or even in literature and so forth.
Yeah, we've had we always have one paleoartist, and we have a handful of paleontologists. But in previous years, we've had Julius Chitogny, come out, and he talked about the importance of paleoart. And, we had Danielle Dufault this last year. And one of Michael's friends, who's a comic book artist, came out. And Mark Schultz came out and talked about the process of doing paleoart. But, yeah, we were thinking... there's so many different people.
Well, the first name I can recommend who's very knowledgeable about dinosaurs in the popular culture is Chicago-based author and prehistoric science contributor Alan Davis.
Wasn't he at the G-Fest when you and I were up there last summer?
Well, yeah, Alan was. He's a guy that I've been in contact with, and he's one of the most knowledgeable guys about dinosaur movies and dinosaurs in popular culture. He's also got a foothold in the Godzilla community, so it'd be a cool mix of both worlds, a foothold in science and a foothold in fantasy. So I think that may be a cool little thing to have for a future Dinofest, to think outside the box of just strict paleontology orthodoxy.
Yeah, if you've got suggestions, I'd love to hear them.
That's one speaker I know of.
Yeah.
And if I knew where he was, I would have recommended him as well. The author of the dinosaur filmography book, Mark F. Berry.
Awesome.
But alas, I don't know what's become of him lately, since we interviewed him back in 2016. And yeah, like Alan, he used to contribute a lot to Mike's magazine in the Prehistoric Times. Just some... Well, if had Brian Switek, I think, would be a very good speaker to have on hand, too.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, send him my way.
I'm thinking about having him on the show someday.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, I think I could make a whole post about this, so I'll move on to my question number 15. Okay, this one, I think you mentioned your favorite museum was the Field Museum. Okay,
yep.
That's cool. But are there any museums that you haven't visited yet, but you want to go check them out?
That is a really good question, because, yeah, I was thinking about that today, and now that we're back on the East Coast, I have never been to the American Museum of Natural History, and I've never been to the Smithsonian, and I have not been to, most East Coast museums, so I think there's a road trip very soon in our what do you call it? In our schedule, right, Lee?
In your future?
Absolutely.
Your itinerary?
Yep. So we're definitely going to visit the National Museum pretty soon, I would say. Yeah.
I was going to wait till they finish remodeling their dinosaur exhibit before I trip out to DC.
Next year.
Oh, that'd be so awesome.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few museums. I've been to quite a few myself, not just Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the day after my birthday, 2015, I got to visit the Carnegie in Pittsburgh. That's a really terrific museum to go check out.
We did go to the Carnegie because Matt LaManna is a friend of ours, and we went over there, and it's, oh my god, to see the type specimen of Tyrannosaurus Rex is just amazing.
Indeed. Oh. It's history you're looking at.
And Diplodocus. Yeah.
Yep, all the fossils on display there are pretty cool, put it lightly.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting. With museums and just general travel, I've pretty much been to a majority of museums in the western side of the United States, and I've pretty much been to every state west of the United States, but anywhere east past the Dakotas, I've never been out east. I've been to every state, half of the United States, but never set foot east of United States, and I've never been. I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thing being.
Well, I feel like the one you'll go to the soonest will probably be Burpee then, because the Burpee Museum is incredible.
Oh yeah, I've heard so much about it. I hope to go by there, and there's so many museums on my wish list as well that I wish I can see. But you know, unless I plan to travel all the way out east at one point, you know, I'll just kind of have to stick to what's closest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the farthest I've ever traveled to a museum has been as far north as Wisconsin, to Kenosha for the Dinosaur Discovery Museum, where Dr. Carr presides over.
Yep.
That was an incredible museum.
I know. When he was visiting us for a short time in Cleveland. It was, I mean, he sold me on it, and I've never even seen it. He said he has, they have a really, really amazing dinosaur hall, so I really want to see it.
It's the way it's set up. It's like a rotunda, so you walk around the room, and there's a whole menagerie of theropod dinosaur species. It's the largest single collection of theropod dinosaurs on display almost anywhere in the world. There's some species that aren't commonly exhibited, like Acrocanthosaurus, Torvosaurus, Suchomimus, and just to name a handful. There's even a cool cast of the T-Rex specimen nicknamed Stan.
Yeah, yep. I know, I really want to get there too. It's so cool.
And there's some pretty cool little mini fossils, actual fossils on display in that side room where the mini gift shop's at before you actually step into the dinosaur hall. That's pretty cool. And I also saw interesting. That's where I also picked up I'm not making a plug here, but I am making a plug here. Dr. Ryan's little Ceratopsian book that he contributed to.
Ceratopsian.
Oh, what, the Ceratopsia?
Oh, Ceratopsian?
Yeah.
For horned dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Yeah, I picked it up at that gift shop.
Mm-hmm.
It was the last copy they had there. And for Indiana museums, I've heard about there's a museum down in Indianapolis that I haven't visited yet, but I know about something that it contains there. It's
yes.
The Indianapolis Children's Museum plays host to the Lansendorf collection of paleoarts.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, Lee and I actually went there not too long ago. Was that a couple years ago? It was incredible. Everyone should go see the Indianapolis Children's Museum, not because of the dinosaurs, but also because it's an amazing children's museum. And I say this as a person that doesn't really like children's museums because I'm not a kid anymore, right? But like, the Children's Museum is really fun for everyone. Like, it's an incredible institution. They have the Lasendorf Paleo Art Collection. They have the Leonardo, the mummified Brachylophosaurus, and they've got Dracorex Hogwartsia, right? The juvenile Pachycephalosaurus. It's just an incredible, incredible place. So. And they have the Dinosphere, which is like the where they have the T-Rex and Triceratops and all of the other dinosaurs, but it changes color and it does like sunsets and it's like the coolest exhibit ever. So actually, one person you should follow on Instagram who works there, her name is Katie, and her Instagram is HuntaKatie, HuntaKatie. She's an awesome lady.
That sounds so awesome.
Sorry, Lee is taking the little Dunkleosteus toy that I was showing you earlier, and our kitten is hunting it.
Yeah, that's just like our cats. Alright. And there's another awesome museum there is a museum I actually did get to visit in Indianapolis not that long ago. It's called the Indiana State Museum, and it's a mecca for Cenozoic mammal fossils of the Midwest.
Yes. Yep. That's super cool. Yeah, we've got a lot of cool Pleistocene stuff.
From the Indiana Museum, some of the coolest things they had on display there were some pretty unique dire wolf fossils there. Including when I mentioned in the chat, there was a male dire wolf that they had found that suffered a severe leg injury after it fell down a pit.
Oh God!
And they did a reconstruction of that animal trapped in the pit.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Yeah, I don't think I've been to that museum. But dire wolves, weren't just at the tar pits. They actually lived like all across North America.
The coolest animal I got to learn about there was actually a paleo subspecies For those that don't know, a paleosubspecies is an animal that is an extinct representative of a modern genus. In this case, it's Panthera onca, the jaguar.
Oh, cool.
This one's called Panthera onca augusta. It's a much larger version of today's jaguars. About the size of a lion,
awesome.
give or take.
I like the American cheetah.
Yeah, Mira Cynex is what that one's called.
Huh.
Yeah, 2 species, Trumani and Inspecticus. I haven't seen those yet, but the jaguar, very cool cat. They had some bones of it on display there, including an amazing lifelike reconstruction of the predator cave or predator trap.
That's awesome.
Yeah, wonderfully illustrated by Karen Carr, whose paleo art can be seen all across that museum,
including at the Raymond M Museum.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to get going now. It's getting late.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to say the same too.
All right, just got it.
One of my cousins has just recently had a baby, and that's what the get-together is for tomorrow to celebrate.
Nice. Well, it was lovely chatting with you. Thank you for your good questions, and we'll see you around.
See you around. It was nice meeting you, Ashley.
Oh, you too.
Okay.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, you have a good night, Sam.
Night, buddy.
See ya.
Ashley, I think Mike's going to let you go, too. Thanks so much for your time and knowledge.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you, and I want to know more about what you do eventually, too. I just requested to be in Prehistoric Times. I can't believe I wasn't.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. We'd love to have you. So
awesome.
And I'm also extending you an invitation to my podcast homepage.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know. Greg and I started talking about this when I was in the midst of just insanity at the museum. So I apologize for my lack of communication.
And yeah, we've got a friend.
I am on my phone all the time, but it's not usually.
I know. And we've got a matter of a friend request that he's accepting too.
Oh yeah, thanks for the reminder.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna head out as well. But Ashley, it was so nice to actually get to talk to you.
Yeah, you too.
I've always been, like you already know, I've been a fan of you guys, your work for everything. And it was so nice to actually talk with you about it and kind of. Learn a little bit more about you, and in return, you learning a little bit about me, and I hope to talk with you more in the future about anything paleo related, whatever that may be. But yeah, it was so nice.
Maybe you'll be at SVP this year.
Maybe we'll have to see. Where is it at this year? I can't remember.
Mexico.
New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can maybe make it, but
and then Australia after that, so Australia's
oh boy.
I'm hoping, but
Yeah, we'll have to see, but hopefully if that comes through, I can finally see you in person. But thanks so much. I really, really was really enlightened by, your kind of perspective on some of the things I really support and everything, and it was so great to talk to you about these things. So I hope to talk to you more in the future and other interactions and stuff. So
all right, and you as well.
All right, thanks, Ashley. Good night, everybody.
All right. Night, Dylan.
Yeah, thanks for co-hosting tonight, Dylan. All right, he's left. I've just got 2 more left, and then I'll call it a night.
All right.
2 more, maybe 1 more, but I got 2 written ones.
Okay.
Left. All right. One of them is about favorite paleontologist. Who's been your favorite paleontologist to collaborate with, and are there any that you would like to collaborate with but haven't had the opportunity to do so?
Absolutely. My favorite person to collaborate with so far was my husband. We worked on sauropod foot project together and looking at the feet of sauropods and trying to figure out what they're doing with their feet when they're walking. Are they flexing their feet? Are they gripping the mud? Are they slipping? What are they doing? And that was a really fun collaboration. Also, we were planning that during our wedding. So we were publishing a paper at the same time as wedding planning, which I do not recommend to my worst enemy. So that was really fun collaboration. People I want to work with would be, oh God, Eric Scott is one of my favorite people of all time, and he is at the he's actually working for a paleo mitigation team now, but he was at the San Bernardino County Museum. He is a Pleistocene horse expert and one of my favorite humans. He and I had talked about a collaboration a while ago, but we did not follow through with that, as usually happens. I've been really lucky to work with Tara Lepore on the paleo education stuff. And then I do want to dive back into research. It's really hard having a full-time job and trying to do research. But right now I am working with Mike Habib and Dave Hone on a pterosaur project. So hopefully that will yield some cool results. But it's kind of a slow-going project because of my full-time work.
That's quite understandable.
Yeah.
And that also influences whom I can book on the show, because some of them, like Dr. Curry, he can be out in the field for like maybe half a year.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I emailed him exactly back in May of 2017, and I didn't hear back from him until October.
Wow.
Well, I came to expect that because I talked to some people that had been in communication with him, mentions that he does get back to his emails when he can.
Yeah.
And when Dr. Curry did email back to me, he said, well, we don't get much in the way of internet or cell service out in the Badlands.
Yeah.
Yeah, here. Another question I had here was, the question was about PaleoFest. You've mentioned PaleoFest, how much it influenced you. Have you or anyone else been at the museum, been a speaker at PaleoFest, or otherwise attended PaleoFest at the Bird Museum? And I know you've answered that last question, but I'm just more curious to see how much Cleveland has participated in PaleoFest.
Yeah, so Lee and I actually did go to the Women in Paleo Fest. That was a couple years back. But as far as other people, no, I don't believe anyone else from Cleveland has been to Paleo Fest, so that would definitely be something to look into for the future. And, we love sharing and collaborating, and I really want to get out to the Shindig as well, because we're good friends with all the folks out there in Ikalaka, the best named town ever. But yeah, and vice versa. If anyone wants to come out to Cleveland, we'd be happy to host them for Dinofest.
What would you say to those who are interested in checking out PaleoFest for the first time? They've never experienced it before.
PaleoFest or Dinofest?
PaleoFest, because I know all about Dinofest, because I've attended it for the past 3 years.
PaleoFest is great. It's really small. It's a small museum, very intimate feel, but it feels like the biggest event just because of how many people they end up fitting in that room. I don't know how Scott does it, and he's not there anymore, I know, but he's at the Museum of the Rockies now. But Scott Williams really set the bar high for that event, so I have all the hopes that PaleoFest will be bigger and better and just different every year. And I'm super excited because it's happening right now, so I've been trying to follow those tweets.
Yeah, PaleoFest sounds like something I would like to go to, but being given its time placement, you can never predict if it's going to be snowing like crazy in Ohio, how it's going to impact your travel, or how warm, how cold it's going to be. So I am a little hesitant about going to it, but I will try to make it out to a PaleoFest Sunday, because since I started going to G-Fest last year, I now make it an annual pilgrimage to Chicago to attend that specific convention every second weekend in July.
Yep. I'm going to see if I can do a little Instagram story here while I've still got you on the line. There we go. So, all right, so I'm here with Greg. Greg's had me on his podcast tonight. We've had a super fun time. Say hi to Instagram, Greg.
Hi, Instagram.
Follow his podcast, Prehistory. What's the full name?
Prehistory, A Traveler's Guide is the name of the show. We can thank my good pal Dakota Hudson for coming up with the name.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's it for me.
Well, just one final question here. It's a fun one. All right. What is your favorite prehistoric animal and or family of animals, and why they are your particular favorites?
Oh my God, I have to pick a favorite? My favorite... my favorite group of animals. Well, I will answer as of recently. My favorite group of animals are pterosaurs, because pterosaurs are so similar to the things that we think we know, like bats and birds, but they are not either one, and it continuously blows my mind how weird they are. And so I tend to gravitate towards the things that I think are weird and cool, and I think pterosaurs are the best. They're mind-blowing. They're as big as, small planes, and they're as small as bats, and they're weird, and some have teeth and some don't, and some have crests and some don't. It's kind of like dinosaurs. Like, we were talking earlier about, like, evolution's really not that creative, and it does the same things over and over again, but I found a new love for pterosaurs, so I'm going to go with that's my favorite group of animals.
And, well, I've come to fear certain pterosaurs if they ever were, actually, like, say, Quetzalcoatlus.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, when you see the size of Quetzalcoatlus, it really is, I mean, I would fear Quetzalcoatlus more than Tyrannosaurus, I think. Just the giant stabby beak.
Yeah, Stabby McStabby. But what got me terrified of Quetzalcoatlus was a novel I read that featured these things, killing people quite violently.
Oh my god.
I interviewed, the book I'm mentioning is called Primitive War. It's written by Ethan Pettis. There's a sequence set in a floodplain in chapter 19 where a group of Russian Spetsnaz are going through a floodplain and they get accosted by a flock of these giant pterosaurs, and one of them is horrifically killed in a very violent fashion.
Oh my god.
And the author, Ethan Pettis, has given it a deadly twist. He has given them long, snake-like, hooked tongues that they use to pull off the limbs of the victims before eating them. It's quite disgusting.
Good lord.
Sorry if I meant to bring in some horror elements to this, but that's just the reason why Quetzalcoatlus, scares me as a predator more than even T-Rex, and maybe except for, like, say, Utah Raptor.
Oh my god.
For most terrifying prehistoric Mesozoic predator.
Well, if the what do you call it? Parasitic tongue,
it's a snake-like tongue.
Fish parasite didn't give you nightmares, now this will.
So yeah, my final question is about paleoart. Do you have any particular favorite paleoartists in terms of their work, or among the ones that you actually personally know?
My favorite paleo art. Oh man, I would say Julius Chitoni, Danielle Defoe, Mark Whitten. Brian Ang. Brian has the freshest of the paleo art right now. Go follow Brian on all of the social media. Brian ENGH. He was a fantasy artist and he turned paleo art, and he is phenomenal. He posted a mosasaur the other day that looked like so real. It was just one of the coolest things I've ever seen, coolest paleo art pieces. So because he's kind of new to the field, he's coming up with all these like things that haven't really been done before, or textures that haven't been seen. So I'm going to go with Brian as my favorite new person.
Those are all very good names. As for myself, the ones that I was exposed to growing up, I would have to say the two names that I do know of that were very big on me becoming fascinated with paleo art were Mark Hallett and Doug Henderson, personally.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, Doug Henderson is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, I can remember seeing his art in this book that I picked up from the library on dinosaurs. That's how long I've known of that Doug's work.
Yep.
And he inspired a lot of the paleo artists that you follow currently.
Absolutely. Yep. It's that inspiration continues and continues. You can see it kind of following through.
So, and even before that, what about, like, say, the classic old paleosaurs like Jednik Burian or Charles Knight?
Oh, I just got a Burian, actually, for the first time. I got a Dunkleosteus and Cladosolaki from our friend Kathleen Springer. My God, it's a just incredible art. And, I mean, some of that stuff you can't do anymore. Like, it can't be done. I don't know what it is, but the art style is not the same.
I mean, the Charles Knight's work, it just has a special place in my heart, just because of the man's imagination, the way some of his paintings actually were forward-thinking for the time.
Yep.
And even Hollywood movies like King Kong were actually ahead of the times. If you
Absolutely.
The idea of Tyrannosaurus being a fast, active predator, or sauropods coming out of water and going on land instead of being in water all the time, that was also a thing for King Kong.
Yeah.
So that could be saved for a whole other video discussion.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think we've covered quite a lot of ground on tonight's show.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
It was my greatest of honors to have you on, Ashley.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yep, so folks, I have a few announcements to make about future guests coming on the show. So I'm going to make those real quick here. Alright, this coming Tuesday, December the 6th, we are hosting Dr. Christy Visaggi from Georgia State University. The week of the 12th, we will be playing host to Dr. Stephen Brusatte, discussing the evolution of dinosaurs and the new book, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, coming out April 24th.
Nice.
And just earlier today, as I told Ashley, we finalized a second paleoartist interview for the show. For those that don't know, I have only interviewed one artist on the show, and that was my first time doing an episode entirely by myself. It was Christopher Schernke I interviewed in February last year. And the artist of honor here, it will be Jennifer Hall, who runs the website hillcreekstudio.com and is famous for creating a very awesome illustration of the Titanosaur Dreadnoughtus.
Also, one of my favorite people and namesake. We actually have the same last name, and we are not related, but we say that we are all like brothers and sisters. There's a few of us that have the last name Hall in paleo.
Well, that would be pretty funny if we did an episode interviewing the Halls.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That would be very hilarious.
Yeah.
And we have we also have another paleo artist scheduled for the show, but we don't have a time or date yet. And that would be paleo artist Todd Marshall.
Nice.
He'll be interesting to talk to about paleo art, because he didn't start off doing paleo art much like how Brian didn't exactly start off doing paleo art to begin with.
Very cool.
And Todd's done work for entertainment like video games and so forth.
That's awesome.
Yeah, two such games including the dinosaur artwork for Carnivore Cityscape and the dinosaur hunting sim Primal Prey.
Nice.
And as for that, that's all the announcements I have for the podcast. So once again, Ashley, I thank you very, very much for coming on the show discussing paleontology education, women of science, and everything else that we discussed tonight.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for the amazing questions, and I am looking forward to continuing our discussions in the future.
Absolutely. You are more than welcome to come back on as either our guest or even as a co-host if you'd like.
That would be cool, yeah.
Just name a person that you want to talk to, and I'll see if I can set you up.
Awesome.
If there's even a non-paleontology celebrity that you would like to talk to that's into dinosaurs, but you have never met, I can definitely arrange for that too.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome, my friend. And I will be seeing you, and I'll be seeing you in May when Dr. Mark Norrell comes a knocking for the Explorer Series lecture.
Awesome.
Understanding dinosaurs in the 21st century.
Yes. See you then.
Oh yes, why certainly. Once again, folks, this is Producer Charles Guide. This is your host, Greg, signing off and telling everybody, take care.